Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It's a Manic Monday edition. It is Monday, January 5th, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann, fellow investigator, researcher, co-host as well. Together, we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Folks, we're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and censored news, information, and analysis. We've got a good program for you lined up tonight. I've got to tell you, a very special guest. Tonight, you've heard him a little bit before, but tonight you're going to hear him full throttle. But before we get into that, folks, you're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look well beyond the headlines, the bylines, a fog of disinformation, misinformation, to bring you the news, behind the news, what propels the headlines. For new listeners, thanks for checking in with us. And thanks for your nod of support, just telling other people about the broadcast. And thanks for tuning in, dedicating 3 hours of your time to our show. For the new listeners, we do broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us, our home base is Hagmann and Hagmann.com. You've got to spell it all out. That's Hagmann, word and Hagmann.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com. Different, of course, from our home base, Hagmann and Hagmann.com. Again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your belief and your trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. My goodness, what a minefield it is. I'd like to remind everyone tonight, this broadcast, portions of this broadcast brought to you by NatureBox. I'm going to tell you something, folks. If you haven't gotten your NatureBox or haven't started it, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. We just got ours in last week, our new box. And I got to tell you, the dried cherries are just absolutely out. Just the pineapple rings, the cranberry medley. Joe and I have been munching in the studio.
I'm
right?
surprised that there's still a few bags left. You pulled that one out over there. The ones that were upstairs.
Man.
We had our Christmas or our family get together just this last weekend because everybody, our family, my sister, you had other family come in during Christmas holidays, so we wait till after everything calms down and we get together. And we did that this weekend, and we busted out the NatureBox, and sure enough, it was gone rather quickly. And there wasn't a lot of people that were here, just me and my wife and my sister, her husband.
And I'll tell you what, people, and folks, let me tell you something. People actually went for... I actually grabbed the bag of dried cherries, put them aside. Also, I'm so bad at it, I guess, but because I just love the dried cherries. But the bottom line is, they actually went for the pineapple rings, the cranberry medley, all of these different NatureBox snacks before they even hit the German chocolate cake, even the cheese and crackers. I mean, the port wine cheese ball with crackers, and man, everybody went for this. So
my wife had to read the ingredients to make sure, because she didn't believe that with the taste. I think it was the corn chips with sunflower seed oil or flaxseed oil. Fritos would be the comparable store-bought item, but she said they tasted better than Fritos and tasted too good to not have or just natural ingredients in them. But anyway, NatureBox is
NatureBox. Go to naturebox.com I'll tell you what, go to HagmannHagmann.com, click on the icon for NatureBox, and just scroll down right to the bottom of our website, and there you'll find NatureBox, and click on that to take you to our special world with NatureBox. Now, a couple of housekeeping issues before we bring on our wonderful guest tonight. And folks, you can read about our guest. His website is on HagmannandHagmann.com on the right-hand side under Monday's show. But a couple of housekeeping issues. We were on with Ted Broer on the Power Hour this morning between 9 and 10, and we had a fabulous time with Dr. Ted Broer being on the Power Hour with he's subbing for Joyce Riley. But I got to tell you, we had just
done a great job at that too.
Oh man, the guy is just a powerhouse, and of course he was our guest Friday, right?
Friday. Yes, he was on Friday evening, and
knocked it right out of the park, I got to tell you.
And he's been hosting and will be hosting the Power Hour as a guest host for the next week or two, as it's scheduled now. So, for those of you who like Ted, listen to the Power Hour from 9 to 10. It's on GCN, and it is a great show. And he's been having people on that are familiar to our audience, guests that we've had on, and he does a great job. We're only on for an hour, so we didn't have time to really get deep into the issues, but we covered a lot, and you know how fast Ted goes. We did a lot, covered a lot. What are you whispering over here to me? What do you need me to do?
I just wanted you to. Why are we hearing?
I'm hearing nothing except you talk.
Oh, hold on a second. I gotta take some audio out of here.
Oh, you gotta pop up on.
We're on a 7-second delay, and I've been okay. I thought maybe I was having a stroke here.
Well, anyway, tonight
Wednesday. Wednesday. We got to talk. Just Wednesday, folks. Tune in. Steve Quayle, Tom Horn, folks. Steve Quayle is weeks away from his new book, Little Creatures.
We got a peek
out.
of that. At least I got a little sneak peek at some of what's in there. And at first I thought the title, I'm like, well, what is Little Creatures? Thinking, that's a good name, but, are we really thinking, are we talking about little creatures here? Or are we talking about something much, much different? But understanding what we face, and yes, they are little, but it delves into a lot of topics that people won't get into. So when he comes on, I can't wait to hear his rundown of the book and what inspired him and what he thinks.
Yep. Him and Tom Horn both. It's going to be just a tremendous show. Thursday, Dan Duvall, author. We had the opportunity to moderate a panel in which she was on in what state was that? Ohio, Columbus, during the Columbus conference. And of course, folks, please mark your calendars. We're going to be presenting and dealing with or presenting and also presenting and moderating
holding a question and answer panel with presenters down there who we choose depending on what topic. And Paul McGuire is going to be down there, Russ Disgar is going to be down there. We're probably going to grab some people to talk about some controversial things, and it's going to be fun. And
that's the Orlando Prophecy in the News Conference. I didn't say when it was or anything. We're going to have that up on our website here shortly, but that's Orlando, Florida, and that will be in March, I believe it is.
First weekend of March, yeah, correct, in Orlando, Florida. Last year we just attended as observers, but this year we will be presenting, which is a huge honor, and we get to work with some of the brightest minds in the field, so looking forward to that. And meeting listeners, of course. That's the best part.
Absolutely. So that takes care of the housekeeping. Now, tonight, folks, you're in for a real treat. This gentleman is, if you can get by his New York accent, okay, I'm just kidding. Actually, it's not bad at all. But this gentleman is a very interesting man, Michael Rosecliff. He had something up called the ArcLight Institute, ArcLight, ArcLight Institute. Now, this is not New Age. This is something. It's a culmination of really a lifetime of work by its founders, of which Michael Rosecliff is one. ArcLight represents the next level of global, social, economic, and geopolitical trend forecasting for businesses and individual professionals. Now,
this isn't predictions. This is forecasting based on historic. Michael does a great job of understanding that history repeats itself. Trends of history usually lead, when you have certain trends that line up and are parallel throughout different governments, throughout the same governments, only different years. We've had events such as the Great Depression, back to the stock crash in '08. There are indicators that change as the time gets closer for a reset or a market correction to happen. Well, he does a fantastic job spearheading the global market forecasting, and it is something that he has done well in, and he has a great customer base, and he's been listen to this. I'll let him tell you about the stock market, but where he sees the stock market going is very interesting. We had a discussion earlier, but with that, Michael.
Yeah. Michael Rosecliff, you're up, sir. Welcome to the Hagmann Hagmann Report, and thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate your gift of time to us.
Hey, guys. How are you? It's a pleasure to be back on, man.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Joe, can you hear him okay? Or am I...
It does sound... he is quiet.
Quieter. Okay.
Yeah.
If you can...
There's something I've never been accused of before.
That's better. Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. And folks, if you have the opportunity, go to HagmannHagmann.com, click on the link on the right-hand side to ArcLight Institute. Check it out there. Also, under the media tab, he's been with, of course, he was on. I got to tell you, he was on October 18th, I believe it was 19th. On the Hagmann Hagmann Report with the Guerrilla Economist, and he's been on a number of radio shows, of course, since then and before that. But I got to tell you, this gentleman is really an interesting guy when it comes to a view from 30,000 feet or 300,000 feet or 3 million miles. I mean, this guy's got a long-range view. Looking Glass is the what would you call it, Michael? The software or that you use, you created?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, man. As far as like, what do you call Looking Glass? Is it software? Is it something, more powerful than that? And at the moment, I simply call it a life's work. I don't know how to put it any other way other than 13 years of working very hard and working very tediously, shall we say, at some points, to create something that would use what we commonly refer to as the internet as a means of prediction, or as a means of a selective level of insight into a collective human conscience, as I like to call it. And we advertise 96% accuracy, and we've been accused of being somewhat arrogant in saying that, we're 96% accurate, but we don't advertise that for fun. We don't make that number up. That's been proven over time. And I have, as I often tell people, cynically so, is trust me, I don't make this stuff up. I have better things to do with my time than make up a bunch of stuff and go on, alternative news kind of stuff. And it sounds almost kind of brash and almost egomaniacal to say, but I don't know what you call Looking Glass at this point. I affectionately refer to it as simply a life's work, and it's something that I'm a heck of a lot proud of. But there's a lot of stuff that even since I've been on your guys' show, that Looking Glass has seen in terms of predictability using, using the internet, using quote unquote the network, almost as an insight into human conscience. And I think, thus far, I think a lot of people that have been subscribing to the EAM, of whom I am very thankful for, have seen that result, and so far, I know I freaked a lot of people out already, but I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing. Some people might call it, taking a swan dive down the rabbit hole, and I look at it as like, this is awesome. So, here I am, once again in your guys' show, and I mean, questions, comments, gripes, moans, complaints. I'm here to take them.
Well, that's good, because I'm sure we're going to visit those areas well tonight. I've got to tell you, it was really interesting timing, because you had sent me a message this morning, just a basically Happy New Year message, and it was while I was reading on roguemoney.net, that's the Guerrilla Economist website, the analysis. It was actually a 3-part analysis: Crouching Bear, Hidden, Here, There, Be Dragons, parts 1, 2, and 3. And I was reading that, and your name is in there a couple of times. with respect to the what's going on with respect to the global, well, everything global, including but especially Russia, Ukraine, disinformation and black swans, and all on and on, MH17 and everything, false flags. And when I saw your name and saw the message, I thought, man, what a great nudge to have you come back on, and let's get into what you're seeing. I mean, I'd like to take a macro view of everything going on, and have you tell us kind of what we can expect, perhaps not predict, but based on your research and analysis and your amalgamation known as Looking Glass, and maybe give us some direction in the global geopolitical department. So where do you think we should start? I mean, we didn't do any pre-interviewing, folks. This is all off the cuff. And so where do you think we should start with respect to everything that's going on? I mean, we got so much going on. So you tell me, what's on your radar first and foremost?
I mean, that's the challenge is almost trying to find a topic to speak about at this point. And I usually like to give everybody a fighting chance. And I usually have about, a half dozen adult beverages before I come on any radio program. No, I'm kidding. Not really. But the reality is we're at a point now where there's a lot of narratives that Looking Glass has seen pieces of. And when I say pieces of, I mean 60%, 70%, 65%. And now, and the analogy that I often give is if you've ever done a jigsaw puzzle that's got these tiny little pictures. It's the best analogy I have at this point. Is if you've ever seen a jigsaw puzzle that's got lots of tiny little specific pictures, okay, on each individual jigsaw puzzle piece. And now they're fun to look at. They're pretty pictures on each piece. But when you start to put that puzzle together, you start to see something far bigger than maybe each individual piece on each individual jigsaw puzzle piece might allude to, and that's kind of where Looking Glass has gotten at this point. And the first thing I'd like to start with, if that's all right with you guys, and I try to remain respectful of everybody's program that I come on, even though I have my own, albeit very unique delivery style, as I've been accused of. I mean, complimented of, recently. But I'd like to start economically, if that's all right with you guys.
That's exactly where I'd like to start, if that's if you're prepared for that, because here we are in 2015. Everyone predicted doom and gloom based on their analysis, a crash and everything. And here we are with, I would say, artificially high numbers, whether it be the GDP or low unemployment or even the stock market. So tear into this thing that we call the economy. You got the floor.
All right, you guys are giving me carte blanche. You may regret it, you may be thankful for it, but I'm going to tell you the way I see it. And that is, number one, here we sit, and it's kind of ironic that we pick a day that the Dow should absolutely take a complete toilet bowl trip, 335, 350, something to that news, something to that end, in terms of a downward spiral. And, of course, that'll start the talking heads on CNBC going, oh, God, what's going on, whatever the case may be. And I think we as informed individuals, and I think they as individuals in the news know exactly what's going on, okay? And that is to say that we haven't even yet begun, not even the tip of the iceberg, have begun to see the forces of inflation. Now, I was just on Roger's sales show, if I can mention that on your guys' program.
Sure.
Moan. I hope you don't mind. Roger's just a really good guy. I literally just got off his show, and I just went on a 2-hour diatribe about inflation. And I think at this point, guys, and I'm gonna be very real, and this is kind of a somber kind of evening for me, just because of what I've been seeing. And there's some stuff in Looking Glass I'm not going to get into this particular evening, but Dow's down. And the only reason I picked the Dow is because it's the kind of stuff that makes the evening news, or major networks evening news. So don't for a minute pretend that I believe that that is a real indicator of American economic health, but the reality of the situation is as follows. We have not even yet begun the tip of the iceberg to see the inflationary forces that are at work here. And those that have listened to my broadcast, that subscribe to the EAM, of whom each individual I am very thankful for, we have not yet begun to see the Weimar Republic Zimbabwe dollar effect of inflation in the United States. And for those of you that think that somehow the United States, just because we have the U.S. dollar, is immune to the natural forces of inflation, are out of your friggin' minds. And that, once again, that may be a fairly bold statement. But you have to realize something. We have artificially low fuel prices right now. I'm going to ask you guys a question real quick. I don't mean to host your show, but I'm going to ask you a question. How much, if you don't mind ballparking it, does gasoline per gallon cost where you guys are at?
Oh, the pump prices right now
$2.49,
$2.49.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it. $2.49, $2.43.
Yep.
Okay. $2.49, $2.43. All right. Where I'm at, I'm 33 years old, guys. I never thought I'd see gasoline under $3 a gallon ever. Okay? So here we are at $2, and let's call it a round number, $2.50. We can all agree on that. $2.50 a gallon. Okay, now that may seem like happy times are here again, right? Now, there's kind of a dark element behind what we're seeing in terms of low fuel prices. Now, the Western media would rather us believe, and I think V can speak to this also, but the Western media would rather us believe that happy times are here again, low oil prices, holy crap, everything is okay again. And the reality of the situation is that anything but that is the truth. And so we scratch our heads, and we may scratch other parts too, and we go, what's really going on here? That's not the product of that's really not the product of any sanctions or anything of that nature. That's the product of the Eastern nations, the BRICS nations, absolutely dropping the hammer when it comes to when it comes to the price of fuel. And the reason is they know. Okay, so 5 months ago we were looking at $5 a gallon gasoline. Okay, $5 a gallon. So now we're down to $2.50 a gallon. Where's another $2.50 a gallon going? It's going into the real economy. Okay? It's going into investments. It's going into the market. It's going into disposable income. It's going into vacations. It's going into, whatever you want to choose. But the truth of the matter is, here we sit at $2.50 a gallon gasoline, and we realize we have stage one of the Dow 28,000 rocket booster. The natural inflationary forces of the inflation of a currency with our debt securities flooding back on shore, with the United States being the only nation that's willing to buy back their own crap, for a more polite way of putting it, to save the U.S. dollar, is the next stage of that rocket booster. So here we sit, low energy prices, an undesirable dollar, a BRICS nation contingent that's capable of mashing the F the petrodollar button anytime they want. The notion of the United States dollar losing world reserve status currency, whatever the hell that means, and here we sit with this absolute Zimbabwe dollar effect. And we have convoluted economic metrics of which I dare anyone with a functioning frontal lobe to point to a real economic metric that indicates real recovery. I'm talking about real industrial output, real industrial manufacturing, real industrial GDP, not the crap they make up, to broadcast on CNBC. And so you see where we lie in that almost kind of 1936 Germany Zimbabwe dollar. And as I speak to you, I hope you guys understand this, as I speak to you, I am holding a dollar, okay? Right. I swear to you, I am holding a German Reichsmark, thanks to a customer of mine who was awesome enough to send me one, 50,000 Reichsmarks. In my other hand, I swear to you, I'm holding a 20 Reichsmark note. What the hell happened in between is the question I ask. The same thing that's going to happen in the United States.
Michael, what was the highest denomination that was ended up being printed in the Weimar Republic?
Trillion.
A $1 trillion bill?
Yes, they did print $1 trillion bills. I have a customer in China that is actually going to send me one of those because I'm building a collection of inflation on my wall.
Wow. Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Just so I'm correct hearing what you're saying, this is coming to America.
It's here. It's not coming. It's here.
Okay. All right. Before we get too far off the track here, we were talking about the pump price of gas. I just want to be clear on what's going on with that. If we can just revisit that for a moment, just so I'm clear on why we're looking right now at $2.50 per gallon cost, and it's a very heavily taxed. A lot of that $2.50 is tax. So, but tell me again, why we're at $2.50?
Well, it depends. I mean, would you like the Western media narrative, or would you like what's really going on?
Well, definitely what's really going on. We can get the narrative anytime just by turning on the television set. So tell us what's going on.
Well, that's cool. Well, now I'm down to, in one hand, I'm kind of twirling a silver dollar. On the other hand, I have the 50,000 Reichsmark note in my hand. So I hope you appreciate the irony of this. But in terms of why you see those lower pump prices, okay? What happened is the Anglo-Western banking nations, and I think, once again, V will come on the show, and he will probably speak more intelligently in terms of details than I can. I'm a macroeconomics guy. V is a microeconomics guy. But what I will say is that the Anglo-Western nations, the Anglo-Western media, would rather us believe that these awful sanctions on Vladimir Putin, okay, a guy that could run for president in the United States right now and win on a Republican ticket, if that makes you feel any better, they would rather you believe that these sanctions are driving down the price of oil, okay, and as a result, that's horrible for these BRICS nations, and rah-rah, America is going to win. Okay? That's not the case. Putin opened, and not Putin specifically, but the BRICS nations, oil-producing nations, up to and including the Middle East, have opened up those faucets and just went, you know what? Screw it. They've opened up those faucets, and now they're absolutely flooding the market with inexpensive oil. Now, that is, in my eyes, one of the greatest moves, according to Sun Tzu's Art of War, that could ever, it's just absolutely epic, because what they're doing is they're aiding the hyperinflation of the Western economies. They've given crack to a crackhead.
Okay. Aiding hyperinflation. How so? Because wouldn't that extra, if gas was at $5, we'll just talk in round numbers here, $2.50 now, $5, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months ago, a year ago. Consumers having an extra $2.50 a gallon in their pocket, wouldn't that, in my mind, wouldn't that extra $2.50 go for, food, clothing, luxuries, discretionary stuff, or savings even? How would that add to hyperinflation? Help me understand this, because I'm not an economist.
Okay. That extra $2.50, let's say 50 cents of every gallon that would typically be spent in gasoline. Okay, let's say that goes towards clothing. Okay, all right. Let's say the next dollar goes towards food, shelter, basic needs. Where's that extra dollar go? Well, hell, I got an extra dollar. Market's running like hell. I'm going to invest in it. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I picked up. If you ever seen the movie Lord of War, okay, Nicolas Cage, I picked up a gun and joined the customers. I'm even trading options at this point. You know why? Because the narrative is so freaking outrageous at this point that you can't not. My approach is very different. I understand that the market is absolutely outrageous at this point, and I'm taking paper wealth and turning it into metals, okay, And once again, as I sit here twirling a silver dollar in one hand and a 50,000 Reichsmark note from 1923 in the other hand, I look back and forth, and I simply cannot help but appreciate the irony of history. And, I mean, I guess your listeners have two choices. They can say this guy's out of his mind or he knows something we don't. I'll give you a hint, it's the latter. For every, let's say, round number dollar, okay, for every round number dollar that isn't spent in gasoline, that's finding its way into the investment economy, okay? That's finding its way into ETFs, ETNs, options, derivatives, 401ks, pensions, Roth IRAs, whatever the case may be, structured products. They're just shoveling dollars into that. And that's only stage one of a multi-stage inflational rocket that's going to go to the freaking moon and beyond.
Okay, I get that. Okay, go ahead.
There's just more money in the system. And now we have to scratch our heads. Now, you guys are smart. You guys are private investigators, so you know BS when you hear it. Okay? You guys have made a career out of discovering and exposing Bravo Sierra.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right? Now, let me explain something. Here comes the next level of Whiskey Tango Actual Foxtrot. That's what the actual fudge is going on here. Now, a couple of months ago I mentioned that the market would be marching in lockstep with the metals prices and the U.S. dollar index. Anybody with a functioning frontal lobe should be scratching their head going, well, hell, that doesn't work. And it doesn't. Except we are in an environment where, quite simply, the fundamental laws of economics no longer apply. The dollar, a fiat currency, a metal, an indication of real wealth, or real wealth as it is known, and most capital indexes, with the exception of today, I know, 300 and some odd, points down, whoop-de-doo. Tomorrow will be 250 points up, and everybody will be smiling on CNBC again, But once again, all three of those metrics are marching in lockstep north. And therein lies the problem. How do you have real wealth, fiat currency, and equities all trending higher at the same time? And that, in and of itself, to anybody that knows economics, should be an indicator that something is horribly fracking wrong.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I read V's site, Rogue Money. I read Zero Hedge, Silver Doctors, all of the financial sites, King World News, listen to the interviews. I understand that. Obviously, manipulation is, the system's rife with manipulation. But, okay, so we know from what I'm hearing you telling me is, well, metals should be, if the stock market's going up and everything's rosy, the price of metals should be going down. If more so than perhaps what we see here. Is that a correct statement, or am I in left field here?
No, you're 100% correct, and what you've just described, and you have to understand. I apologize, and I don't often do that on the radio, but I apologize for getting somewhat passionate and throw the chair across the room passionate, as I like to call it. But you have to understand the kind of data that I'm seeing with Looking Glass is just, I call what I am a 3-year economic major. I have a 2-year degree in business and marketing. Okay, I don't have any conventional or classical, as I suppose you call it, training in economics. But the reality of the situation is, truth of the matter is, what you said is 100% correct, and that is to say that yes, if you have a dollar, ostensibly a fiat currency or a non-asset-backed currency, okay, that's trending higher, okay, the reality of the situation is that you should have a metals market trending lower. If you have a fiat currency trending higher, and I say fiat currency in reference to the U.S. dollar, I hope I am offending people by saying that. but if there should be that inverse relationship, and that should be an indicator of economic health. The equities market, equities in companies should be indicative of a strength or a belief, or not so much a belief, because beliefs are just horribly dangerous, but at least a perceived confidence in a corporate market, that companies, that economics are safe, they're good, it's a safe place to invest. And we're having all three trending higher at the same time. So I ask yet again a very simple and a very forward question, and that is, what the fudge is going on? And the reality is, you have an artificial force repressing metals, because God forbid metals start to show their true value, the whole system comes crashing down, because then it becomes so obvious that there's this level of repression on metals. And I think you guys saw the Swiss vote. I thought this was really neat. The Swiss vote, they voted no to repatriate metals, precious metals, gold and silver, to Switzerland. They did. And the funny thing is, the next day everybody thought gold was going to absolutely fecal the bed, and it didn't. It went up $50 the next day, because I think people are smart enough at this point to go, oh, this is Bravo Sierra. Okay? So we have a metals market trending higher on fear. We have an equities market trending higher on greed. And then we have a U.S. dollar trending higher on stupidity.
I like that. And that I can, yeah, we do. Okay, go on. You're doing well. Yeah.
And guys, I know, my delivery may be harsh at sometimes, but I've spent 32 years of my life giving a crap. The portion of my psyche and the portion of my personal being that gives a crap what anybody else thinks of what I have to say or who I am has officially gotten on the bus, and you're staring at taillights and diesel smoke. All right?
Okay. I like that. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Most of 99% of the time. Yeah, I get that. Okay. So,
as I so jokingly reference people oftentimes, there's different levels of preparedness that you can have, okay? And I met some lovely people recently that I just happened to go to their home. They were gracious enough to invite me to their home, and they were very lovely. And I started talking to this lovely guy. I'm just going to call him Jay for the moment. I don't want to mention his name, but he was a heck of a cool guy, and he invites me to his home, and he starts busting out buckets of food, okay? Like straight up, vacuum sealed with a hair straightener bags of beans prepared. And I said, well, you know what? It's nice to see that I'm not by myself, that I'm not the only one that sees that this kind of stuff is coming. And I said, and there's different levels of preparedness, of course. I said, you got your what I consider pragmatists, and that is, folks that are investing in precious metals and things of that nature. You got folks that are investing in, obviously precious metals, gold and silver. People that are bagging up the food and getting themselves a 3 to 6 months, supply of food or whatever the case may be, just to prepare themselves. And then you got your extreme, which is, straight up running down the beach naked with a mace, which at that point, it's like, you know what, we got to take a step back. But somewhere in there lies like that happy medium. And the truth of the matter is, I'm starting to see more and more people are kind of going like, yeah, Mike, there's something wrong here. There's something that's not right. And the reason I say Dow 28,000, and people think I sometimes speak facetiously on that subject, and the reality is I don't. And that is, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen those inflationary forces, and the people that say that can't happen, truth of the matter, okay, haven't studied history. And it's one of those things where it doesn't seem right. It goes against everything we know to be good and true, which is you got to look backwards sometimes to see where you're going. And, where we're at right now, we got a year and a half. People ask me that question. It's probably one of the most popular questions that I get, okay, is how long, Mike? How long until, all hell breaks loose, or whatever the case may be, or the feces hits the aeration device, as I like to say. A year and a half. We got about a year and a half until, by design, it all comes crashing down, and it's done for a reason. I don't know if you guys have time right now, but I'll very happily get into the who, what, when, where, and why.
Oh, we got time, buddy.
Absolutely. You just by design.
You said a whole mouthful there.
And you had a specific time frame, not that we have to worry about the date, but leading us to believe that there is information out there detailing what you're about to get into.
Yeah, boy. Okay, so everybody, make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full and upright lock position, because we're going to get into it right now. Dow, 28,000. I think I heard you say that. Oh, boy. And a year and a half until, everything goes haywire. Oh, boy. I'm not sure where you get that time thing. So, boy, go ahead. We're ready. We're buckled in.
All right, you guys are ready? Because I only have one setting, on. And like I said, I apologize if I'm super intense tonight, but I'm a few adult beverages into the evening, and I got like 4 screens worth of Looking Glass data in front of me, and I'm in a rare mood. But nonetheless, Dow 28,000, I try to convey as best as I can the ramifications of that, because first of all, I am a political atheist. And people say, well, what in the hell does that mean? I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in a two-party system. I think power does what power wants. Okay? And whatever, suit, tie, and chunk of meat they stuff behind a podium is completely irrelevant to a completely different agenda. Okay? So my observation is as this. What we're seeing is the demolition charges being placed on I guess if you want to call it at this point, an antiquated means of economics. Okay? The guys on Wall Street and the guys that are in charge, they dug themselves in too deep. Okay, derivatives, you could put a 357, cock the hammer, and put it to the side of my head. I'd laugh hysterically if you asked me how a derivative is put together. I couldn't tell you. I'm a pretty smart guy. I worked on Wall Street for 2 years. I designed trading algos. I couldn't tell you how a derivative is put together. They dug themselves in too deep.
Man, I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I couldn't tell you either.
You know what I would do? Pull the trigger. I'm not attached to life that much.
Wow. Okay. All right. So derivatives, a mega mystery here as to how they're constructed. All right. Keep going.
The people that put them together. All right. And V will tell you this. Okay. This is real stuff. I couldn't tell you how they were. The guys that put them together couldn't tell you how they were put together. All right, and I know I'm having a Kramer, they're nuts, they know nothing moment here, but I'm entitled to those every once in a while. But nonetheless, the reality is they've dug themselves in too deep. They've created a monster they can't control. All right, and the original plan was, now here we go, off topic, everybody brace yourself, seat backs and tray tables in the upright position. We know you have a lot of airlines to choose from, but thank you for choosing ours kind of moment. Okay? How did we get out of the Great Depression in the 30s?
How did we get out of it or into it? Out of it?
Out of it.
Yeah, well, if you listen to the mainstream news, didn't we spend our way out of it? Didn't we push money into the system?
Yeah, it was great, right? We had the FDR's New Deal. Everything was great, and we were lighting frickin' farts through flannel pants. It didn't work. Then we had World War II. World War II showed up. That's the only thing that saved our keisters.
That's true. Yeah.
World War II showed up, and so we scratch our heads, and now I know there's a couple of individuals listening right now that are going, oh, my God, Rosecliff's in rare form. Yes, he is. I don't know how many of these broadcasts I have left in me at this point before I go completely friggin' insane. But the point of the story is if Obamacare, okay, was FDR's New Deal, MH370, which turned into, through the miracles of I don't know what at this point, turned into MH17. That was designed to start World War III, but Putin was too smart.
Wow.
Holy crap, did he say that?
Yeah.
He did. Yes, he did.
Okay, folks, did you hear what he just said? The missing aircraft turning into MH17, right? Or MH17 is the one that was shot down over Ukraine, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to stop you. Keep going.
Okay. So we scratch our head now. Okay, Joe and Doug, two very intelligent individuals whose show I am thankful that you've obviously had me on, and I know I'm in a rare mood tonight, but I warned everybody on Twitter, by the way. I said I'm in a mood. But let's say Joe and Doug are the co-CEOs of Malaysia Airlines, and you lost an airplane. You lost one.
Stuff happens, buddy. I mean,
yeah, excrement happens, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so you guys lost an effing airplane. You know, the kind that has two giant fifth-generation engines connected real-time telemetry to, let's say, the Boeing headquarters in Seattle. Okay? So you guys lost an airplane. Let me explain something to you. You lose a set of car keys. You lose a pair of really good sunglasses you might be pissed about, but you don't lose an airplane. Okay? So that plane goes missing. Completely gone. Vapid. Same spot as Amelia Earhart's hanging out. A couple of months later, here comes, Joe and Doug are once again the co-CEOs of Malaysia Airlines, right? They're feeling so good about their ability to operate an airline safely that they choose to fly over an active war zone, okay? And all of a sudden, MH17 gets shot down.
Weren't they directed there, by the way?
They were designed to come to drop their altitude. And I'm a big aviation nut, and Beal attests to that. But they were designed to reduce their altitude by about 3,500 feet and fly a vector that was just completely ridiculous, through where like 4 other planes got shot down inside of, I want to say 96 hours. I could be wrong on that. If I am, I will fess up to it immediately. But I know a couple other planes got blown out of the sky there, and of course. Apparently, MH17 was shot down by what's called an SA-11 Gecko. Okay?
All right.
Right? A bunch of pro-Russian rebels figured out how to operate an SA-11 Gecko system, which takes about 2 years to learn how to use. And they learned how to use it in apparently about 25 minutes. Sorry. That was designed to start World War III. Okay?
All right.
I'm going to say that again. That was designed to start World War III.
Okay, now let me stop you there. How was that? Because, how was that supposed to start World War III? I mean, walk me through that part of it.
Bush League, man. Frame Putin, pro-Russian rebels, shoot down airplane, full of civilians, plane crashes, big sob story. Putin's bad guy, and all of a sudden the military-industrial complex gets an easy out. That becomes your new wartime economy, okay?
But didn't we see that, though, in a way? I mean, not to the degree that it was intended, but didn't we see that where there was an attempt to blame Putin? And a lot of people fell for that narrative?
Yeah, they fell for it for about 10 seconds. Until Putin, in his infinite wisdom, one of my personal favorite world leaders at the moment, because the guy just does work and gets money every day, okay? He is one of my favorite world leaders because he's an Iceman. He sat there and he took it. They tried to embarrass him, and he took it. And they tried to frame him, and he took it. And he took it, and he took it, and he took it, and he took it, and then he went, you know what? Game over. They tried to frame him. They tried to make him the bad guy. They tried to make him the bad guy of Cold War V 2.0.
All right.
And he played the Iceman, which is one of the hardest roles to play. He stopped caring. You remember when they embarrassed him? They tried to embarrass him with like the shirtless horseback riding pictures. They tried to make a lampoonery joke out of him. That didn't work, did it?
No, and I kind of took that as like a Fifth Avenue type of advertising his masculinity as opposed to the Obaminator's metrosexuality type kind of thing.
It backfired on them. They were supposed to embarrass him, and here he is, jumping in frozen lakes and, just going full-on nuts and busting 20-pound ice blocks over his head, full-bore, absolute bad posterior status. And, it backfired on the Western media. I mean, I think a lot of Western men look at him like, yeah, that's the guy right there. I mean, the guy wakes up in the morning, he's bored, and he punches a bear in the face. Like he's that kind of guy. So I think that kind of backfired a little bit. Then they tried the, he shot down MH17 narrative, and that went to hell in a handbasket because now he's got the truth on that. And I'll tell you right now, that was a Mossad operation. Okay, that was designed to start World War III for the banker community, and that went over like a turd in a punch bowl. And he's got the information now to prove that is true. And being his former KGB brilliant self, and I'm not anti-American, they say, well, this guy thinks Putin is great. He must be anti-American. No, I'm pro-truth. And Putin is just one of those guys that doesn't put on airs. He comes out, he does his thing, and he is who he is. And I really admire that because he's not a leader, he's not a politician. He's beyond that. He's a statesman. We haven't seen one of those in a real long time. The last one of those that I can really say that we've seen in the modern era of history, Julius Caesar. Okay? The guy's a statesman. So I thumbs up him, and I say that the current president that we have in office now in the United States, if it came down to it, Putin would reach his hand in his crotch, wipe 3 times, and bitch slap the guy we have in office. Okay? And that's not anti-American. That's friggin' reality. And if anybody's going to problem what I'm saying, that's fine. But the reality of the situation is yet once again, you notice they backed off of Putin. Real quick.
Well, yeah, and let's go back, if I might, here to your statement where one airplane was the 370 was turned into MH17. Would it not follow that? I mean, I'm not even sure how one would do that. The disappearance of one aircraft to reemerge as another, only to be shot down. Wouldn't both governments, that being the United States as well as Russia and other governments as well, know that?
There's 2 governments that did and one that didn't. I'm going to give you 3 countries, and you tell me which ones that knew and which ones that didn't. Ready? Israel, the United States, and Russia. Tell me which one didn't know.
Don't say the United States.
Nope.
Israel?
Nope. Try again.
Russia.
You got it. They didn't know.
Oh, boy, I guess I have to. Okay. So what you're saying is, I get. Okay, I see where you're going with this. You're talking about a Western-backed covert op.
You got it. It's the UAV squad attempting to, and I know you have and I say this with the utmost respect. What I try to tell people is that I only have one setting. I bring the pain. Okay. I know you have a certain devout religious following to your audience, and and that's fine. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to. Well, maybe if I do, it means they're thinking, but I try to bring the information that I have with the passion that I have, but I try to be respectful of especially of you guys who've had me on your show. But at the same time, I think, you got to look back at things like 9/11, and you have to wonder why. Okay? I think you have to look at, who benefits from starting World War III? Israel, okay? It's a nation it's a banking nation hiding behind religion. I got no love lost for them, no mercy. Okay? If I'm offending some people by saying that, good.
Well, let me just throw a disclaimer in here. Not really a disclaimer, but more of a I guess an analysis. We're talking about Israel, the government, as opposed to God's
the
people,
banking
the
elite,
Jews.
the power structure.
Absolutely.
Just like any government. The U.S. shouldn't be judged. The U.S. citizens shouldn't be judged based on the actions of our government. Just like the people.
There's one story that I will tell you guys that is one of the most, and by the way, for those of you that might be attempting to label, Mike the anti-Semite or Mike the whatever, I've dated 2 Jewish girls who welcomed me into their families' homes that have been tremendously wonderful with me, and I regret breaking up with both of them because they were both awesome. But my love life aside, okay, there's a really interesting piece called The General's Son. If you ever get a chance, just Google The General's Son, okay? And it's a story of the son of an Israeli general that just absolutely condemns what's going on in the Middle East between Palestinians and Israelis, whatever the case may be. And he just brings forth some some narratives that, I mean, it's the kind of stuff that makes me step back and almost discover my own emotion, almost. But nonetheless, the point of the story is you have to see that connection, that banking connection, that religio-banking connection, okay? And I know I'm probably pissing a lot of people off saying what I'm saying on your show right now, and I know there's no tape delay, and I hope you guys invite me back on your show because I'm trying to just bring truth, okay? And to the point that 17 and 370 were the same plane, yeah, I mean, it was so obvious, all right? You know, that would have been World War III. That would have been, you know, not necessarily a shooting war, okay? That wouldn't have been necessarily a shooting war. That would have been more the Cold War V 2.0 that would have just resulted in a lot of military-industrial complex progress. So without that component, okay, now certain forces, we won't mention any names, looking in certain directions, excuse me, they ran out of plans. Okay, they have a problem. The World War III component is gone. So that leaves only one thing. Those sabotaging forces, and I'm not going to mention them, all those efforts that they put in, all those false flags, perhaps 9/11, you know, I don't say one way or the other, but I simply leave that forum open to people, or open for people to think about. All those sabotaging forces, all that energy that they've put into these false flag events are going to collapse back on their empires. And it's not going to be World War III. It's going to be 1,000 little conflicts, and it's going to look something like a purge.
Okay.
All right, now this sounds insane. This sounds wild. This is like, you know, oh, man, when is he going to start talking about UFOs? He's not going to, you know.
Well, death by 1,000 paper cuts. I mean, the result is going to be the same, is it not? I mean, chaos everywhere. It doesn't have to be, you know, on the scale of just a nuclear holocaust, but certainly you can get the job done by chaos everywhere.
Well, there's a saying that, and one of the words that I have a problem with is globalist. I'm sure you guys hear that a lot being in your business, right?
We use it a lot. Sure, I use that term globalist a lot, and people say, "Well, who are you talking about?"
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Globalist. I got a nasty surprise for you guys. We're all globalists. We live on a planet. We're all globalists. Okay.
What term should we use then?
I don't know. I don't say that often on the air, guys. I mean that. Okay. I don't know, but what I will tell you is that we are all globalists. They say, well, you know, the globalists want this, that, and the other thing. And then there's this other thing that of order comes chaos. You ever hear that phrase?
We often say that. Yeah.
Of order comes chaos. Yes, it does, and yes, it should. Why? Dodo birds. People often talk about good and evil, right? Biblically speaking, man, I know I'm pissing some people off tonight, and I love it. But good and evil, the perpetually, you know, the perpetual battle between good and evil, right? The good and evil, the good guys and the bad guys, the good guys and the bad guys. What the hell happens when you combine the two sides? You know what you get? Something called necessary. Of chaos comes order. Okay.
Well, that isn't that what. I mean, order from chaos. If there's chaos, is it not necessary to reestablish order? The argument comes how to do that, the methods to reestablish order. I mean, no one wants to live in a chaotic environment. Order is the natural objective, is it not? So we need to establish order. If our home is in chaos, we want to establish order. The question is how you get there.
Of course. The example I give is I use the dodo birds in California. Okay. Now, my esteemed assistant, without whom we would not be having this conversation right now, but we talk about biology a lot. I'm fascinated by biology. You know why? Because I know nothing about it. She went to school for microbiology, macrobiology, and forensics. She's got a master's degree, and to me, things that happen under a microscope, I giggle like a schoolgirl when I see that stuff happen. Why? Because I don't know anything about it. To me, it's like, woohoo, this is great, right? But the natural order in nature, is chaos. Ooh, that sounds scary, right? The chaos word. Ah! Chaos. Chaos is the system or the force that returns systems, all systems, no matter how big, no matter how small, to a natural level of sustainability. Now, to say that of chaos comes order, somebody might label me, ooh, you must be part of the Illuminati. Ooh, right. You must be part of the New World Order. Yeah, sure. No. I am an absolutely detached observer with a program, okay? Of chaos does come order. Now, the dodo birds in California. The dodo birds in California went extinct. Why? Because they were meant to. That was the forces of nature. Decided that those dodo birds, they've run their course. They've been on this earth for 175,000 years, and guess what? The dodo birds are done. It wasn't good. It wasn't evil. It was necessary.
And on that point, Michael,
I think go on.
I just wanted to tell you, we're up against the top of the hour break. If you want to finish your point, go ahead, and we can get into it on the other side, right where you left off.
No, that was my point. I mean, I'm okay. like 10 seconds like picking up the chair in the office.
I apologize.
That was an F-bomb. That was one. I did good. And just hurling it across the office. But the reality is, man, guys, I get passionate about this stuff because there comes a point where you just see so much that others don't. And I don't know how to deliver this message any other way. If you have a better idea, I'm all ears. But for now, you got to deal with rum and coke, Mike Rosecliff, coming on the Hagmann Hagmann Report and just doing work and getting money and just trying to really just let people know, hey, everything's not okay right now, and it will be at some point, but get out of the way while you can. That's what I'm here for.
All right, with that, we're going to take our top of the hour break. On the other side of this break, we can get into some monetary policy, how that's changing and consolidating, and how that's going to affect us and what kind of system and who are the drivers behind that system. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Monday, January 5th, 2015. Our guest, Michael Rosecliff.
Rosecliff.
Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 of this Monday, January 5th, 2015 edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Our guest tonight is Mr. Michael Rosecliff. His website, ArcLightInstitute.com. He has been a former guest with V, coming on talking about the banking, the monetary policy, the manipulation, the one world mindset, the one world currency that is being ushered in incrementally, and the manipulation of our paper dollar since the inception of the Federal Reserve, to the removal of the gold standard, to where we are today, holding a dollar bill which had 99% more value 100 years ago at the very ends of our diminishing and dismal economy. Dad, you had a question you wanted to open with this hour.
Well, yeah, a lot of questions actually, but I'm not sure we're finished up with the. I suppose we are, to the extent that we can be. Michael, I'll just turn it back over to you with respect to the attempt at World War III with respect to with the first Malaysian flight that disappeared, and then. What you're asserting here is that it became MH17. My question, I have a lot of questions with respect to how that happened. The mechanics of that. I'm not sure you, me, or anyone could explain it. That would call for taking a plane load of people, disposing of those people, and then a whole lot of other things, Well, we'll just go with your assertion that missing flight was MH17 and was shot down. Let's just go with that. We'll stipulate that to be the case based on your what you said. We'll stipulate that, and that was to be used as a precursor or as a reason for a global war. And let's just go on from there. So Putin didn't take the bait. That's fine. Now what? Okay, now where do we stand?
All right, guys. Well, I mean, you asked a great question, which is how did 370 become 17? And maybe I'm taking for granted that that folks have been visiting the ArcLight site, and, ArcLight.com, or the ArcLight Institute.com, I should say. Hey, I remember to plug my own stuff. And I did as best as I could. Excuse me. And you have to realize I'm a one-man operation at this point. But once again, I go back to the original analysis of, let's say, Joe and Doug are co-CEOs of Malaysian Airlines. Are you really, on the heels of losing an airplane over the South Pacific, are you going to fly another airplane on a bizarre vector? And as you so eloquently illustrated, are you going to drop 3,500 feet, right into the range of shoulder-fired weapons, whatever the case may be? I'll tell you what happened to that plane. Their missile never hit that plane. The bomb went off in it. Now, there's also credible sources, and I might add, and you can feel free to scour the web for this. There's credible sources, okay, that indicate that the bodies on that plane were 2.5 months old. I have a problem with that.
I've seen reports of that, and suddenly they're expunged from the internet. Initially I saw reports that the bodies were not, they didn't appear, pardon the expression, fresh, recently deceased. I mean, that they were.
Why would they make that up?
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
But then again, okay, so. All right. So what you're ultimately saying is they sent the same plane up that disappeared with a bomb in it, with people that were deceased for since the plane disappeared. Okay.
Of course.
All right.
It gave the guys over at Woods Hole a chance to play with all the new sonar equipment. And by the way, I would like to offer my sincerest accolades to CNN, who. In their infinite wisdom, sending out Anderson Cooper and such, they did a fantastic job of finally finding a friggin' plane. Air Asia, way to go, guys! You're like 1 for 4, as far as 2014 goes, in Amelia Earhart-esque type disappearances of airplanes. Way to go once again. But nonetheless, why would they make that up? That's the question you have to ask themselves, or you have to ask yourself.
Good point.
Why would they make that up? What possible benefit can come from on-the-ground reports in Ukraine at the crash site of saying the bodies are 2 months old?
Okay, but
in the name of Zeus's rectum could possibly come of that entire situation?
Okay, but now let me go back and ask this. Okay, now we have a plane, another plane then. Well, we've got one too many planes, and certainly one too many load of passengers, don't we?
That brings us to the Air Asia flight that they actually friggin' found. Way to go, guys. Anderson Cooper can actually report on CNN that they found an F''N plane. Suddenly the warm and fuzzies have returned. No, they haven't. Okay, so obviously, to me, the narrative, and through Looking Glass, and this is, again, I mean, it sounds like I'm kind of off the cuff here and I'm kind of out of my mind, but you have to understand the amount of research I've done with Looking Glass, and I invite anybody out there listening in Radioland to sit behind Looking Glass for a year and see the data that it spits out and not go borderline out of their mind. People say I'm suffering from insanity. I say I'm enjoying every minute of it. But the truth is, you have to look at, okay, so Air Asia goes down. Same spot, essentially. 1,000-mile radius. Plane number, 5 disappears? Okay, I'm curious. And plane number 5 goes down right in the same kind of narrative of where the hell did North Korea come from? When did they suddenly become a threat to the quote-unquote debaucherous Western way of life, of which I have no problem with because I'm quite debaucherous myself? But nonetheless, all of a sudden we have this Sony hack. Okay, and I come from a very creative computing background, and I'm sure V will speak to this narrative. He and I have had very long and in-depth conversations on this subject. If I, in terms of quote-unquote creative computing, if I want into something, I promise you guys I'll get into it, okay? But what I can tell you is that the hack of that movie, The Interview, strikes me as the greatest marketing stunt ever pulled by a craptacular Hollywood studio ever. Wow, that's
but it was more than that, though. It was not just I mean, a lot of people, a lot of secrets, a lot of personal information was exposed. I mean, so
lie.
Go ahead.
Lie.
How so?
That was the greatest marketing stunt for the shittiest. That's two B movie.
Yeah, you got one more, buddy. No,
I'm on the 2 strikes, guys.
Okay, one more. You got to clean it up there. Okay.
I'm on double super secret probation as of right now. But what I will tell you is this, guys, in all sincerity, I'm in rare form tonight. I will tell you that was a B movie that was going to flop. Okay? They messed with Putin, and they couldn't do it because the guy invented the game. Okay? So now North Korea becomes the new bad guy, the new threat to American free speech, the new threat to the American way of life. And there's something very important that I think that the Anglo-Western kind of, the narrative that we're used to needs to realize. Putin is a statesman. He was smart enough to play the game with them, but he played it better than they could. North Korea, they're not playing with the same enemy there. North Korea has a point to prove. And I've used this analogy with the EA.
All right.
Okay.
They've got a point to prove now, but do they have the capability of proving it?
Japan.
Okay.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. They don't care what they hit as long as they hit it.
But wasn't Sony a Japanese corporation?
Not a shot.
Meaning?
Sony, as far as I can tell, and this is from my research, could I be wrong on this? Absolutely, guys. I don't profess to be infallible. I can only report what I see. I do with passion. As you can see, sometimes the 7 words I'm not supposed to say do surface. But what I will tell you is as follows, okay? You know, in terms of, you know, Sony, you have to realize that's a globally owned corporation, guys. Okay,
that's true. I mean, yes, you've got you've got global tentacles of.
It's not owned by one country. It's not owned by one individual. It's not owned by one nation. Okay, guys, and you know, I apologize for becoming very passionate about what I say, but you have to understand. Like I said, seeing what I see, you know, you got 2 choices to make about me, guys. I'm out of my mind, or I see something that maybe other people don't. Okay?
All right.
But what I will tell you is that Sony, to get through, just think about this for a minute. Sony allegedly got hacked by some sort of mysterious North Korean bizarro land, quote unquote, quasi anonymous kind of thing. Within a week, guys, within a week. Okay, they had Google Play and all these networks ready to deliver that content that was the movie that was allegedly hacked. Right. I will tell you, from being in IT for almost 13, 14 years, you don't set that up overnight. I don't care what kind of money you have. You have to have load-balanced content delivery networks that have to be set up with copies of that movie and systems set up to – it didn't happen. That was part of the plan.
Okay.
North Korea is the new bad guy because they're just backing off of Putin because he will kill them all.
So we can go back to what George Bush said about the axis of evil, and of course North Korea has been mentioned throughout the last decade, number of decades, as being a potential threat. And you know, it's interesting, especially from a neocon or former neocon perspective, how North Korea figures into this. So you're telling we've got it's seemingly disparate points here, or unrelated issues. We've got the MH17, 370 before that. You've got the Sony hack. All of this, and we started out talking about the Dow and gas prices. What is going on here from a view from outer space? Are all of these related? Are these, the different punches of the same boxing match?
Kind of. is the only way I know how to say that. And that sounds like a very indecisive answer, but what we're seeing now is they've backed off of Putin, okay? Because, again, they forget that, and I'm going to speak to a minute and a half about Putin. They forget that he grew up, for the most part, in socialist Russia, truly communist with a capital C, socialist communist Russia. And then he lived in East Germany for a little bit, and he saw how ineffective that communist with a capital C, socialist type of narrative really worked there. And so he went back to Russia, and they forget that he was KGB. Okay? He invented the subversive warfare kind of methodology that you're seeing played out now. So he really doesn't have, I mean, it's almost embarrassing to see what the Western world has tried to do to him and how very effective he's been at it. So how do you see the two things connected? Well, he was supposed to be the original boogeyman. Okay? They can't touch him. They put him in place. They created a monster that they won't stop. So now you see the Anglo-Western banking forces starting to look for a new boogeyman. Now they tried ISIS, obviously a Langley creation. I won't even get into the details.
I agree. I totally agree.
Well, other than the fact they're driving around in Toyota Hilux trucks with the Border Patrol package fitted to it, complete with Weston bull bars and steps, if you're big into cars the way I am, you look at those manufactured parts and you just go, you can only buy one of those in Texas, and you can only get the parts for those in the United States. But nonetheless, let's pretend that didn't happen for a second. All right, let us temporarily, suspend our observational skills and let us realize that we have a new boogeyman. And well, what the hell does the Sony hack have to do with anything? Okay, Kim Jong-un is going to be the new boogeyman. The threat to American free speech, the threat to the American way of life, because they're standing down off of Putin. All right. He knows too much. Okay? He knows that 370 and 17 are the same plane. All he's got to do is step forward with two things. Truth about 9/11, which the KGB undoubtedly knows. The SPB, Secret Police Bureau, and KGB, they didn't stop doing what they did just because the wall went down, folks. Sorry. That's number one. Number two, all he's got to do is step forward with the truth and say this was a Mossad operation, this was an Israeli banking operation designed to support the city of London and the banking war V2, or the Cold War V2.0, okay? And that's it. He owns the planet. That's it. All of a sudden, places that I won't mention at this moment on the radio will become targets, shall we say.
But why? But seriously, why wouldn't he, if he had this or has this information?
Money. They can pay him to shut up, and he might take it. They can pay him because they're afraid of him. He might take it. He might take it and still reveal the truth. They don't know what he's capable of. 1936, Adolf Hitler rose to power, 5 years, became Chancellor of Germany. The only reason he wasn't as devastating as he was supposed to be or should have been or could have been is because they stopped him before he had one thing. One guy changed the entire outcome of the war, Albert Einstein, and his research on nuclear physics, and now I'm sounding like I'm really out there, but if Hitler had a doomsday weapon, you think he would have used it? The answer is yes. Putin played it smooth. Putin got into power by their own hand and then went rogue.
Okay, all right. Kind of like a dog chained up inside a fenced yard. He broke the chain, but he's still within the fence. But Putin's handlers have lost control over him, but he's still within that fenced-in yard. Is that kind of a good analogy?
The problem is they can't get within that fenced-in yard anymore without getting eaten.
Okay, all right.
They created a monster, okay? The Anglo-Western banking nations created the ultimate boogeyman, okay?
All right.
For Americans to hate and Americans to lambaste. And what wound up happening is that he gained more popularity in the West than anybody could have ever imagined. And now, exactly what you just described, guys, 100%. And I know I'm being super intense tonight because this is just stuff that I'm just amped on, but you've just described 100% correct. They have a rabid monster in a cage that no one's got the guts to get in. Because if they do, he'll destroy them. It's that simple, okay? And he's the kind of guy to prove the point that would, and I'm not going to suggest or even mention on your radio program, out of respect for your radio program. I already slipped twice. I'm showing you guys a couple of beers for that, and I think that's only fair. But what I will say is they've created a rabid, foaming monster that the very handlers of which they have, that created him, don't have the guts to get in the cage with him because he'll destroy them.
All right. Okay. So what you're describing here is a pretty interesting global game of chess, geopolitical chess here, and at this point, well, chess that's gotten out of hand, we'll say.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move rapidly along here, and okay. So now we find ourselves at this point. You mentioned the Sony hack in North Korea. Now, are we about ready to start blaming North Korea for everything? Because the FBI did that, nobody bought it. Everyone said, well, I shouldn't say nobody. I mean, the narrative fell apart.
Well, that's just it. I think we're seeing the Anglo-Western banking system that's been predicated entirely upon a war or conflict-based economy. They're desperately seeking that next boogeyman, okay? And I think what we're seeing now is they're looking for that next kind of face that they can make the bad guy, that they can make the Hacksaw Jim Duggan crowd hate without really any question. And and I say this, and I hope, guys. I mean, and again, I apologize for my slips this evening, but I'm in a mood tonight, guys. I really am. I'm seeing what's going on, and I'm in a mood, and I hope that your listeners forgive me for my profane slips, but nonetheless. I think the Anglo-West is desperately looking for that, that next bad guy that they can get those, the USA crowd, as I kind of sarcastically refer to them. Those are the people that just, at the drop of a hat, okay, will go along with that flag-waving narrative, and I don't hate this country, guys. I really don't, okay, but I think they're looking for that next bad guy that they can put up on a poster and say, "Yeah, there's our problem." Okay.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. Which I mean, we've been chasing that ever since 9/11, and ever since World War I, actually. But that's a story for another day. Okay. So what you're saying is here we're set. Well, what I think you're saying is we've set up North Korea to take the fall for a whole bunch of nasties here.
And if I can jump in,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The countries without a central bank, we had, I think, 7 countries before we went into Iraq in 2003, Iraq, Afghanistan, I believe Libya, Sudan, each entered into contract with the central bankers, becoming a part of that central banking system. Cuba, Iran, and North Korea were the last 3 countries, and only 3 countries now, that do not have a central bank tied into the World Bank and IMF. How much of the what we see happening with North Korea is stemming from that fact that there is no central bank, that the bankers want to get in there and implement their system of banking by any means possible?
Or is that too short-sighted of a reason, or is that not big enough of a reason?
That's a fantastic question, and I mean, in terms of North Korea, what I can speak to in terms of the research that I've done, and when I straight run out of research and I don't have anything intelligent to say, I don't. Okay, but what I will say is that I kind of use an old Italian mafioso, being from New York, kind of mentality about North Korea. Russia, Putin, China, they remind me of the old school mafioso. Okay, they keep their business to themselves. They do what they got to do. They try not to hurt anybody innocent in the process, and they're just there. Okay, they're the guys in the dark suits. North Korea is like the next generation up. Okay? And I'm sure there's some people that are, right now are listening to this show smiling and nodding, going like, yep, he knows what's going on. And my answer is that North Korea is like the young, mafioso that's got something to prove. They're dangerous. Way more dangerous than a Russia or a North Korea. I'm sorry, a Russia or a China. China's been through hell and back 15 times. Russia's been through the Cold War and hell and back 15 times. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he's got something to prove. Okay, and that's what makes him dangerous, and that's what makes that nation dangerous. Now, can they strike the United States? No, not that we know of. So let's say for a minute, no, they can't. But there's plenty of Western interests in that area that they could, Japan being one of them. Okay.
Well, South Korea, yeah, of course.
So yeah, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan for the moment, that may or may not be a BRICS nation. Jury's still kind of out on that one. I don't have anything really intelligent to say about that, so I won't. But the reality of the situation is that there's enough U.S. interest in that area that if they got pushed, unlike Putin, who will sit back. Putin retreated for a little bit. He went, okay, let's see what's going on here. And he saw the game of chess unfolding in front of him and went, I could win this without firing a shot. And he did. That's when they backed off of him. Kim Jong-un is not going to think that far ahead. He's just going to launch. And if it comes down to it, okay, there's your new boogeyman in terms of, the bad guy that's going to be paraded in front of the otherwise imbecilic American public and go, yeah, that's the guy that's trying to, hack our movies and stop our free speech and, hacksaw Jim Duggan, USA! And, most of the idiots will get behind him, but he's Putin's replacement. Putin is the most dangerous man on the planet right now in the sense that, they tried the same shtick that they tried on many people in history before, and he figured out what was going on before they were able to do it to him.
Well, I think we've got a good pattern of activity from Syria, from Benghazi and Libya. I think that the Russians, obviously, I think and I'm not sure what your software had turned up. I shouldn't say software. Looking Glass had turned up about Benghazi past and even current, but I think Russia had a hand in this in terms of that was kind of a pushback for the Syrian arming the anti-Assad rebels. I don't know. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So if you take and forgive me if I'm going forward too much, but if you take your looking glass or looking glasses, we could even call it, and look through the lenses of your looking glass. So what you're saying really is not mere speculation, but a product of your looking glass. Through your looking glass, looking at the geopolitics of everything, that includes the economy, what you're saying here is a product of your looking glass. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I know I get passionate about this stuff, and I get wild about this stuff because I mean it's been the kind of stuff that I focused on since I've been 20, and I'm 33 now, so in terms of what I'm seeing now, and that's why I hope you guys forgive me for the 2 slips that I've had. I've done 60 hours of live radio, and I've had more slips in the last 2.5 hours than I've had in my very short radio career. But the reality of the situation is, when I start to become very cognizant of what's going on is when I see narrative starting to do what I call crossover. Okay.
Oh, explain that. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead because that's a very interesting concept. Go ahead.
When I run Looking Glass, and I don't discuss very much, in terms of how I run the software, what it does, whatever the case may be, and that's just not for anybody else to know right now. But when I start to see narrative A, start to form a pattern with narrative B that starts a pattern with narrative C, You know, and the best analogy I have, guys, is if you ever seen one of these things, man, like the jigsaw puzzles where you know, there's a little teeny tiny picture, okay, on each individual picture. I'm sorry, on each individual piece, okay? And those are all fun to look at, and you look at each individual tiny little picture, but you start to put that jigsaw puzzle together.
Difficult to do, to say the least.
You got to be, you know, you got to be a little out there to want to do that kind of stuff, and you know, but after a little bit, you start to see a bigger picture of those little pictures.
Exactly.
And, you know what I'm saying? And
exactly. Yep.
When I start to see the economic narrative pull in line with the geopolitical narrative, and when I see that geopolitical narrative pull in line with maybe a socioeconomic narrative, and I start to go, oh man, that's what's going on. And that's, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how many of these broadcasts I have left in me, all right? I'm being honest with you. I don't know how many more radio shows I'm going to do. I'm doing my best with what I got, but what I will tell you is this, that when you start to see that bigger picture, you go, oh man, I see what's going on. And that's when I start thinking about expatriating out of the United States. And that's not because I'm unpatriotic. That's not because I don't love America, okay? I was born and raised here. I'm an American citizen. I'm happy. I love this country. You know, I look at, you know, I go to the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C., whatever the case may be, and I look at that and I go, is this really what people died for? And that's where that conundrum kind of arises. And that's why I talk about the expatriation thing. Not because I'm a coward, not because I'm going to, you know, I want to turn tail and run, but because I go, is this really what Marines and Army and Air Force and Navy and whatever the case may be, is this what they died for? And that's where the conundrum lies.
What is this then? I mean, for the listening audience who they're listening to you and saying, okay, I'm with you there. We certainly, and this is our position, we certainly don't want to become involved in any foreign entanglements of our own invention, but we see that taking place, obviously. We see the warmongers. You know, I mean, our listening audience is, I got to tell you, our listening audience is perhaps one of the most well-educated, well-balanced, well-informed listening audiences. That's not because they listen to us, but because they do their own research, and they do it in a very special and very comprehensive way. But having said that, what would make you outside of the obvious objection, but you know, to the objectives, you don't agree with that. What would make you leave? Because that's one heck of a move. Do you see the collapse of the country? Do you see the takeover of the country? I mean,
I see a culling of the herd.
Meaning wholesale death.
Yeah, that's my short answer. You know, I mean, if you're waiting for a really elaborate answer on that. I mean, I'll tell you right now, guys. All right, the United States government has relied, and I think we've seen this at 9/11. It's been just a glare, and that's what inspired me to build this program. Okay, there's probably going to be a time when I'm going to not be doing radio interviews anymore. And I've always kind of really wanted to do what I'm doing right now. So you guys are helping me fulfill a little bit of a dream here. And I hope you understand what that means to me in the terms of being able to deliver what I've been working on over a decade for. So for whatever that's worth, you know, some people say I come off brash and egomaniacal, and some people even say sociopathic, but it's like, you know what? I have something to say, and I've just been waiting a real long time to say it. But I'll say this, okay? In terms of getting out of this country, I think a lot of the United States or the government or the powers that be, I think they rely on people, man, to kind of, you look in the wake of 9/11, and it was all of a sudden, it was that hacksaw Jim Duggan, USA, you know, we don't like Muslims, that kind of thing. And it was just like, Muslims just happen to be a convenient boogeyman. Now it's going to be the North Koreans, whatever the case may be. You know, and now you look in New York on even more of a micro level, and you realize you have police against civilians. You know, that divisive narrative, man. You know, and I'm no hippie. I'm a capitalist, okay? I charge $150 per month for 2 emergency action message newsletters that I do. I'm a capitalist. I'm not a hippie. I promise you that. But I think it's time for intelligent people to wake the, you know, foxtrot up, so to speak, and figure out what's going on here. See, I was good about that. But the truth of the matter is, I think we're approaching. I think we're past a point of no return, Biff. I think we're past 88 miles an hour. I think we've seen, those two police officers that weren't doing anything to anybody. They were sitting in their police car, okay, and they were doing nothing to nobody, and they got shot at close range in the middle of a crap neighborhood in Brooklyn. And now we're starting to see that kind of other side of America rally behind the police officers going, hey, wait a minute. That's not right. And that's the divisiveness in the United States. Maybe it's by design, or maybe it's by the forces of sheer chaos and natural selection. I don't know. But what I will tell you is that for those that can stay in the United States, awesome, cool. I admire your courage. I really do. I'm not a coward, but I'm also not an idiot. I'm getting out of here as soon as I can. I have the luxury, okay? Myself and the esteemed assistant, about the only person on the planet I care about at this moment, we have the luxury of being very single, not owning a home, okay? We got a little car we own and, and a bunch of stuff, whatever the case may be, and I take about 10 seconds to pack that SOB in a pods container and be in Costa Rica in about an hour.
But what are you running, aside from the obvious, what are you running away from? You mentioned the two police officers that were gunned down, execution style.
What do they deserve that, is my question.
Well, obviously, nothing.
Right.
That's the short answer, and really the only answer. I understand the baggage that comes as a result of that, where people are saying, well, the police are out of control, they're militarized, they're...
I would, too. If I was patrolling the streets right now, I'd be in a Tiger 1 tank.
Well, yeah. Again, a different discussion. But having said all of that, you're correct in saying, look, they were executed. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is this a precursor to something larger in terms of civil chaos here in this country? Will that be the event that sets it off, or will it be more of these? Should we expect more of these? Again, I'm asking this based on your informed assessment from your hybrid looking glass, perhaps.
I do as best as I can with what I have. But what I will tell you is this, okay? First of all, the police officers that were shot in their car, I know the neighborhood that they were in, okay? I'm originally... and I've mentioned this about a gazillion times, I'm born and raised in New York, okay? I've walked through Bedford-Stuyvesant. It looks like Tet 69 on a good day, all right? They didn't do anything. They were two new guys that drew crap detail to go patrol a crap neighborhood, and the reality of the situation is they didn't do anything to anybody, okay? So now we scratch our heads and we wonder, is this the beginning of something bigger? Yeah, it is the beginning of something bigger. It's the beginning of divisiveness. And what we're seeing now in the United States is something that typically is only seen in Europe. Okay? Typically it's the narrative that we've been conditioned to in the United States is that it's police versus civilians. Okay? We have the riot police in tactical gear, excuse me, and Nomex head to toe against the save the bee, save the trees crowd. There's another side brewing, guys. There's a pro-police. There's an angry middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, working class America that's going, you know what? I've had about enough of this nonsense. Okay? We've seen it before. We've seen it before, guys. Okay? Think about the Selma Bridge in Alabama in the 60s. Okay? There's going to be a point where the police turn their back or they wait a little bit. Okay, think Bull Connor. And, I don't have an interest in one side or the other. I'm getting the hell out of here, to be quite honest with you, because I don't want to be caught in the middle of it, and I know you have some, devout listeners, whatever the case may be, and they'll appreciate what I'm about to say, and it's a biblical quote. I don't often use them, but I'm going to use one here, and that is, a wise man sees danger and goes the other way. Why would I want to be caught in the middle of it? Why would you guys want to be caught in the middle of it? It's a cult, is what it is, a culling of the herd. And, people say, well, Ebola, they released Ebola. If you listen to guys like Alex Jones, which I'm probably never going to get an invite on that man's show after I've made fun of him so much, and I'm sure he's listening now and going, I hate him. But, there's going to be FEMA coffins, and there's going to be, the Ebola is going to be a population control system. Guys, guess what? Here it comes, the way it is. If I never get invited on this show again, cool. But, I hope I do, because I have a lot of fun with you guys in this show, and amongst others. But I'm going to tell you this the way it is. Ebola. I've spoken at length with the esteemed assistant, okay, about Ebola as a population control tool, and she's been the first to tell me in her infinite wisdom that no, it's not. You want to know what a population control method is in the United States, guys?
Sure.
It's angry people with guns. People are the population control method.
All right. Well, and I get that. So what you're saying, what you're looking at from a macrocosmic point of view is civil unrest, civil riots. I had a DHS source 2 years ago tell me this particular regime in the White House wants to create the conditions for civil war, whether it's black versus white, minority versus, or whether it's based on class.
Sure.
Okay? So that's their objective.
Sure.
But exactly how could such an event, you're talking about, you would have to galvanize a large part of the population, wouldn't you? This is a question for me. Wouldn't you have to galvanize the majority of the population when you can't even get the majority of the population off the couch to care about anything? Yeah,
it seems bizarre, doesn't it?
It does.
I know, and I'm 33 years old. I know I'm a member of Generation Apathy. Now, I don't fit in very good with my generation because I have this real moron thing I do called thinking. But nonetheless, well, how are you going to get that generation off the couch? That wacky tobacco smoking generation, so to speak. How are you going to get them off the couch? How are you going to get them militarized, mobilized, doing their thing, right? Well, the answer is easy. Let's say I was running for president in 2016.
All right,
Jeff, you got it.
Go ahead.
I mentioned this. I've done about 5.5 hours of live radio today, and unfortunately, two of my FCC incidents have been on your show. But the answer is Jeb Bush has to do two things. Okay, Jeb Bush has two jobs, and that's where they can put a fucking stuffed meatball.
Man,
I'm trying, guys.
Hey, look, buddy. We can't do that. All right, we can't.
That's my 3 strikes, man. Next one, I'm off.
Buddy, we appreciate it. You come back when the rum and coke isn't there, my friend. Okay, appreciate it, my friend. Appreciate your time. Seriously, we do. God bless you.
I try doing what I can with what I got, man.
Good luck for you, man. Good luck.
God bless you, man.
All right.
God bless you too, man.
All right, folks. Yeah, we're not going to do that. But you know what? Okay, so the bottom line with this is looking glass, the forward, looking through the looking glass. He's got a lot of good information in terms of where things are headed. The delivery, obviously, a little rough. We apologize for that. And
the guy does have a vast wealth of information of past, present, and of economics, economics in a whole as regards to the policies, the systems, and the ways that they're implemented. And off air we had a great conversation, and he said he did 5.5 hours of radio today. He turned out, but yeah, hopefully we can have him back on again, and
sure.
We can get the message out there in a way.
Okay,
more put together. But thank you, Michael.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, sir. We appreciate your time tonight. Unfortunately, like I said, we've got to draw the line at some point, and we did. And no excuse, no apologies. That's the way it happens. And this is live radio, so give us a break, guys. Right? All right, folks, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We are going to take our top of the hour break early. We have got some otherwise technical issues to take care of, and that's a true statement. Once we get rerouted our technical things here, we'll be right back. It'll be about 3 minutes. Folks, stay with us. You're listening to a Muddy Monday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report today.
Back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of this Monday edition, January 5th, 2015, on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. We will take calls this hour. We're going to hit news also. Yeah. Actually, before I say we take calls, we do have a lot of news to hit. Let's hit some news, and then if we decide we're going to take calls, we'll tell you guys to call in once we see how much time we have left. But there are some major news issues that need to be discussed, and we can get into that. Start with you. You have a story you wanted to hit.
Well, yeah, folks, I'm going to tell you something. I really believe this is not background noise, and I think that we need to be paying attention to this because this could expose quite a bit. And I hate to even bring this up, but it is something that we need to discuss. It's this pedophile ring. And haven't we had guests on, whether it's Russ Dizdar or, well, especially Russ in particular. He's talked about the pedophile, the Satanistic pedophile type activity that he has seen. And that's pretty rough stuff to be talking about. But I'll say this. If you look at the allegations now against the royal family, and if you look at the U.S. connection to this, really, the only way to describe it would be a pedophilia ring involving young girls. In fact, Grudge headline right now, Girls Silenced by Palm Beach Pedophile Ring.
And most surely boys, too.
Oh, yes. Go back, folks, to what we talked about with respect to the Franklin cover-up, okay, back a number of years ago now. And that never went away. The sexual abuse among the power elite, it never went away. And if you look at what Jeffrey Epstein has done, Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile, I mean, he was, now I say pedophile because he was convicted of that. So here's the deal, okay? If you take a powerful man, a wealthy man, a powerful made by wealth, without morality, without any concept of morality, without any concept of consequence, either mortal, meaning carnal punishment here, or earthly, or even heavenly, and you align him with people like Bill Clinton, and he was close to Clinton and the royal family, what do you have? You've got this person who wields a lot of power, especially after they, or people like Epstein, says, stop the tape. Because you know everything that is going on is being taped, whether it's covertly or overtly, it's being taped. The bottom line here, watch this, because the courts, watch what the courts do with this. Watch how they're going to handle this. Will this, in this digital age, far beyond the Franklin cover-up, will they be able to hide their sins in this age of the Internet? This is not something that's background distraction noise. This goes to the root, ladies and gentlemen, in my view, goes to the root of the evil that is within the Beltway, within the city of London, and everywhere in between. And this also, according to information I have, and it pains me to say this, I don't have any direct proof of this, but I have people telling me to look toward the Vatican. Now, boy, in terms of complicity, in terms of additional suspects, man, that's hard to say.
The child sex trafficking is one of, if not for the drug industry, one of the most criminal organizations, the most profitable criminal organizations, sadly. these people that are both the power elite and their minions to just perverted, sick, mentally twisted people. This is so, I mean, there wouldn't be there's a demand, obviously, a huge demand for child sex trafficking. And why is that? Because there are people who engage in these type of behaviors. As horrible as it is unthinkable as, I mean, for any normal person to try to imagine somebody that could do something like that to a child is sickening. And if I dwell on it, it turns into anger and hate. But we'll leave it at that. But these have been going on for a long time. Only now have they been coming into the public sphere, especially in the UK. I've noticed so many people bringing up cases in court, trying to bring people to justice who have been proven to be people who are engaged in these trafficking rings. As you said, it is something so hard to talk about. It's such a touchy subject. But we do have agencies, and I know they're just like police officers. There are good people working in child welfare departments, but that's why these institutions were set up, not to help children.
Well, right. And I just, before we get off this subject, I want to just mention, go back to January of 2012. It might have been the first, second, third of that year, January of 2012. Folks, do you recall a young woman's body being found at the vast rural estate in Norfolk in the UK, where Queen Elizabeth II and her family celebrate New Year's? Do you recall that? The body was found on New Year's Day, very close. Well, on the property of the elegant country home of Sandringham in eastern England. This is where the royals held a New Year's Day celebration. And, of course, you can find pictures of this estate. It's just a huge, I don't know, it's a castle-type thing. But that particular incident tells me, if you look at, and I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know what the actual ruling was with respect to this dead woman being found on this property. But if you look at the time of year, that tells me that I would be looking toward more of a satanic leaning, a satanic crime type of activity. Now, again, this is just based on my own, I'll call it speculation, but informed speculation. When you talk to people like Russ Dizdar, and you talk to police units who deal in this kind of stuff. So there, and if you think back and look back at the Jimmy Savile case in the UK, it just gets worse and worse. But folks, I guess the reason I brought this up was not to make anyone ill, but to make sure that we look at this not as background noise, but more to the point, perhaps the part and parcel to what's taking place today, the pedophilia, the child sacrifice, the young people sacrifice, the sacrifice of people, period, among these power elite. It's becoming more and more overt. And there it is. So just wanted to say that. I think that's a big part of the news. I spent actually a lot of time this weekend investigating that and the very seamy and very disturbing side of the power brokers, the elite, the people within power. And this will stretch into the powerhouses of this country, of the United States, as well as other countries. So keep your eyes on that as the week progresses. I do intend to have some information that connecting some dots on that. But Joe, we've got other news as well. But that's a big one. But we've got other news as well. My goodness, yeah, it's incredible. But anyway, the Dow did, and folks, when Michael Rosecliff was on talking about the Dow, now he did state that the Dow dipped 300 and some points today. But relative to now, because we looked at this before the show, and we talked about this a little bit, relative to percentage points and relative to drops, historically speaking, is that really anything newsworthy? Because, as he said too, it'll be back up, tomorrow. And can we expect dips like this? I think we can. I really do, especially when you've got things like the plunge protection team, the economic stability. There are groups out there we don't even know exist that can manipulate and plug holes into the market. And it's all artificial. It's all managed anyway. But that's something that I wanted to mention as well. I really believe that what we're seeing right now, and if you study very deeply into this, I think that the economy right now is showing signs of cracking around the edges, and the foundation, I guess, it's been cracking around the edges, but the foundation of the Ponzi scheme is about ready to blow. And Bonnier, of course, being there's for those people who are still in the right-left Republican Democrat paradigm, I do believe the vast majority of the country who are playing, those who pay attention to politics, they see now there's an uprising within the Republican Party. The conservative element of the Republican Party is wanting to get rid of Bonnier because of he's not effective against Obama. So they're going to toss in perhaps a breakaway type of party that's going to be, I don't know, the Tea Party on steroids, perhaps. Maybe not, or maybe not as effective, but certainly they're going to fracture the party, it appears. And I'd be interested in hearing the listeners' thoughts about that as well, especially the timing of this. Was this by design?
Yeah.
By design? Joe, what do you think? This is by design?
I think everything is by design. To what level and to whose design? Obviously, we know the Lord has everything under control, and whether everything that happens He uses for His purposes. Whether we are able to understand and see that when necessary is another question. But these things are, as you say, the people in power are trying to fulfill or bring out what is talked about in prophecy. They do this.
Exactly.
They're following the King James Bible.
You mentioned something in conversation earlier. Now, we were on with Ted Brewer, the Power Hour that he was hosting this morning, but you said something after that about a revelation and about the falling of stars. Let's just go back for a second to the topic of the pedophile ring, the satanic type of ring, and of course we see Hollywood steeped in this. And you said something very interesting that caught my attention about the meaning of, or perhaps a more colloquial meaning of falling stars. Meaning that we've got Hollywood actors who are considered stars, people in Hollywood considered stars, falling, and will they fall because of things like pedophilia, exposing the sins of these people? Perhaps.
Yeah. There's some theories out there that talk about, in commentaries from 15, 16, 1700s, from very well-respected, if you'd call them theologians, people who obviously read every word in their Bible and created what would be commentaries on, or their interpretations of what they were reading. And one of the theories, when talking about the stars falling from heaven unto the earth, they state that this is also could mean that all the people who hold positions of authority or respect, from the religious sector to economics, politics, their reputations will start to be tarnished in the public. And a friend I was talking to the other night said, in Hollywood, when you become famous, what do they call you?
Yeah, a star.
A star.
But yeah, no, I'm not. Obviously, I'm not saying, and
right.
I'm not big on the actual meaning of star. But it's interesting to look at it from that perspective. People that supposedly hold some level of esteem among a population falling because of their activities, be them entertainers or politicians or whoever. But a rather interesting way of looking at it, nonetheless. Moving along, I should note here that Bonnier needs, 218 votes tomorrow in order to retain his seat as Speaker. 218
or what?
votes.
Who becomes Speaker?
It's 218 out of a 246 member GOP caucus. Now, or they would vote someone else in. So, at this point, here's my thought.
Who deserves the title of Speaker of the House? Is Pelosi in the running? She's a Democrat, huh?
No. You got to go on the Republican side. But the bottom line with this is,
Jay Rockefeller still there, or is he a Democrat?
Here's the bottom line with this: if the Republicans or the conservatives fail to oust Bonnier, then look what happened. I would guide your attention to what happened in 2010, and the true patriots, or those attempting to be true patriots. I guess I don't want to describe true patriotism just because of their political stance. Will be punished. I believe they'll be punished. That's what happened in 2010, and I can see that happening again. And when that happens, what will be the blowback, at least on the stage of illusion of politics? That's going to be an interesting thing to watch as well, at least for those people who are following that. But that, to me, is less of a story. If you can believe that, then what's taking place, the exposure of the British royalty and even some of the people here in the United States. And don't forget, folks, that the British royalty, as well as the people in power here, they own the courts, they own the legal system. So what will become of that? That's a good question. We should get calls as well, Joe. But go ahead. Just pass it back to you.
You're right when you say that. With the world we live in today, as a regular person born into this world, in America, the challenges the mountains you have to climb over in order to be successful. And when I say successful, I mean provide a life for your family that includes heat, shelter, food, just the basic necessities. It's become a struggle, a fight, a battle. It used to be, in at least my grandparents' generation. I'm not sure how much so in your experiences. I know you always had to work hard to make sure that there was your necessities for your family. But today, it's unlike any other time in history. And when we get to this point, and the guest Michael talked about it, and other guests have talked about the war of the classes, pitting one class against another, a welfare class against a working class. And knowing the working class sustains the welfare class, you wouldn't think that the welfare class would be too quick to want to start a fight with those who are sustaining them. But the game is not about, it's about division. Regardless, they say never
that's at the heart of it.
Fight the hand that feeds you. But all those rules are off the table now because, as our guest said, they're ready to call the herd. And they have ways of doing this. And one of the biggest ways is through wars. Well, we don't have any world wars going on right now, so they need to be creative in the way that they depopulate this earth. As Bill Gates said in his TED Talks, he put 4 different numbers up there, each representing something different, one representing the amount of carbon per person, one representing people, etc. And he says one of these numbers needs to get to 0. And the only way you could do that is, drawing the conclusions from what he put up there, is to have either a Stone Age type society or a society with so few people that the impact isn't observable in the environment. Henry Kissinger, State Memorandum 200 to the UN Charter and their new millennial goals all echo the same sentiments, that the world is too crowded. The resources are not enough. When the opposite is the case, we have, I heard it best said by a biblical scholar who also studied in science and in some different sciences and population. He said everybody in the world could fit with 2 feet standing room in Jacksonville, Florida, the biggest city in the country. And each person of the world would fit in that area. We flew to Montana this year.
Yep.
We saw the vast amounts of land that were uninhabited, lots of forests and also lots of farmlands. But trust me, there is enough of land and resources on this earth to sustain not only the population we have now, but I would say double the population. We need to get rid of the mega cities, these urban. Men were never designed to live in these urban environments. And reading a book on socioeconomics from the 1890s, it gets into this. And I didn't bring the book with me, but it talks about how peculiar it was for this author to observe people moving away from the farmlands into these more urbanized areas. He talks about the dangers. And this was before. I mean, this is when people still understood canning and saving food and preparing and having things on hand in case of emergencies was a part of life, a way of life. And
right.
So see somebody with his experience in those times talking about this, when I'm sure it was, today, like maybe a small township that you have around you if you live out in the country. I can see what he's referring to. Never envisioning the size of a city like New York and how big it's grown and how they started building up instead of out. It is so dangerous. I mean, just think of New York City alone. If the lights were to go out or if there was some type of situation where there were no stores available for 7-day time. I mean, just imagine that one city alone.
Well, alternatively, and I saw a graphic, and I'm not sure where this graphic, it was emailed to me, and I'm not sure where to attribute this to, but there was a circle superimposed over the globe, a flattened globe, and let me see if I can find it here. Correct, here it is right here. Just picture a flattened out globe. Well,
like there
was a circle. Yeah, there was a circle that was over Indonesia, spreading down to, the tip of Australia, we'll say, and going into China, and then just within that circle, the caption is, it might not, it comes as a surprise, but more people live inside that circle than outside of it. So, you look at where the congestion is and look at where the people are. By far, it's in that China, Indonesia area, India, and right up through the islands that make up Indonesia and so on. But in Japan as well. It's very interesting in terms of demographics. But sorry about that. Too much time on that. The other issue I want to bring up as well, folks, this is important too, real quick. This is important. If you saw Breitbart, here in the last several hours.
Last week I saw him out on the site.
Talking about the site, yeah. Cheryl Atkinson, former CBS reporter Cheryl Atkinson. She's suing the United States government, the Justice Department, and the U.S. Postal Service for $35 million. She has filed a $35 million lawsuit against the Justice Department and the U.S. Postal Service for the, quote, alleged hacking of her computers. There was this kickback now from this. Politico's Dylan Byers suggested on Twitter, there's a Twitter, not a war, but a one-way offensive against Cheryl Atkinson, saying that she's taking the wrong approach. Real Talk comes out and says,
the wrong approach.
Yeah, if you believe the U.S. government hacked your computers, this isn't the way to go about doing it. You want publicity. If you want publicity, on the other hand, meaning that she's a publicity hound, I won't use the other word. And of course, Dylan Byers says suing the government is no way to hold them accountable for suspected computer intrusions.
No,
not come on now. Let me say this.
I mean, compared to the alternatives, that's
well, you're going to take it through criminal court. That's let me tell you, Cheryl is correct.
Yeah.
Cheryl is correct. The only way for redress here, because you've got a captured Department of Justice, you've got a Department of Justice that, are you going to litigate or sue the Department of Justice when in the very court system that the Department of Justice oversees? No, you've got to take this outside of it and file the lawsuit in the manner that she does. And for doing so, she has been accused of just wanting the publicity. Now, I say that because, well, for my own personal reasons, I say that. Because, see, there are no winners. No matter what you do, there's no winners. And Cheryl Atkinson, I certainly 100% believe, well, she's got the documentation that her computers were hacked, and it was conspired by the Department of Justice and the U.S. Postal Service.
CBS should be thrown in that lawsuit, too. But that's another
but I mean,
issue.
I guess the bottom line on this, folks, is watch this particular story. Let's see where it goes. This could be a hinge moment, a very important story. But, we're praying for Cheryl Atkinson and certainly hopefully she'll prevail.
To make it a win-win for the government and for her, they would have to settle out of court.
No, that wouldn't even do it. To me, at least in my view.
Look, because going to court, you'd have to have a series of disclosure, and that would also depend on what the federal government would be able to deem is a national security interest, being able to keep it out of the sphere of evidence.
Well, right. You're always at the mercy of the other side, and the other side being the Department of Justice and, of course, the people inside the government, and not being forthright with Freedom of Information Act requests. Imagine that, or not being forthright in the discovery phase of a trial, or hiding behind the national security cloak. Yes, it does happen. And do you think that we're going to get the truth out of this? I don't think so. I believe that at this point, everything that I've seen and with respect to this lawsuit, I do believe that Cheryl Atkinson is going about the proper way, not just the proper way, but perhaps the most effective way outside of the criminal court system, taking it civil and going after the Department of Justice that way. But folks, do you see that she is being made a martyr? Or I shouldn't say a martyr, that she's being sullied by the insults by people on both the right and the left, or those who say that they're on the right and left. You watch how this plays out. You're going to find shills. I mean, you'll be able to identify shill after shill after shill, troll after troll on the social networking against Cheryl Atkinson.
And a separate story that dovetails with this, something we didn't get a chance to talk about, but happened in the end of December. The Insider Threat Program, inspired by the Renegade in Chief, has been expanded and has new rules and authorities preventing insider threats. Background checks are just the beginning. This is not from the White House website. I didn't have time to go find that, but this is an article about insider threat programming and it being policed by the DHS. Data breaches, cyber attacks continue to dominate the headlines as protectors of incredibly sensitive data assets. Government agencies and critical infrastructure organizations are doing everything in their power to prevent and bolster their defenses. Cyber criminals are becoming more and more sophisticated, forcing organizations to increase their cybersecurity. But Edward Snowden showed the world that it's often the people you trust most, employees, contractors, that can inflict the most damage. They go on to talk about studies that show that the insider threat 88% of respondents recognize the insider threat program as a serious issue, but one common, often ineffective approach is to develop an insider program, this said. It goes on to say the trends are reactive in nature, often initiating action too late to mitigate the impact of the threat, being that the data has already been released before anybody is able to tell another that it has. But they say many government agencies only conduct a one-time background check prior to the employee being hired. This critical risk in decision-making limits the information and most likely allows for less accurate information to be passed off as true. Continuing screenings through background checks through new and innovative technologies are factors that are going to be needed to take into consideration and put up for questions of implementation. And they go on to say and list many different ways that a person can defraud their business, whether it is exposing the crimes they commit as they should by releasing the information that's being hidden, or they list some other alternatives which I wouldn't pay attention to. But the fact that the White House has increased their insider threat program, the way that the Obama administration has been just completely dismantling the military leadership structure from the Navy to the Army to the Marines, getting rid of apparently generals and officers who have a certain ideology or mindset, it begs the question, how many threats are in the White House? Are they perceived threats? Or are there people that are just so sick and tired of this big conspiracy that they are ready to spill the beans at any cost? They're not doing this because they need something to do.
Well, and to dovetail what you said, the House passing this $585 billion defense bill, this in December, of course. My goodness, folks. Bipartisan vote of 300 to 119 going over to the Senate to be stamped into law. We're talking about the 2015 NDAA. Look, it's the same stuff, just a different day. And some of the aspects of the new NDAA bill, it's amazing when this first was brought to the attention via Alex Jones and InfoWars leading the charge on this. A couple of years ago, the disclosures upset many people, but today it's almost as if, okay, we've accepted it, we've moved on, and I think that's a problem. I think we have to keep the pressure on, at least to, we've got to keep the pressure on. End of story. Let's go to the phones, Joe, because we do have some callers, I believe, on hold, and we need to get through, at least let them see, let's see what's on their minds tonight. 661-244-9839 if you're not in line. 661-244-9839.
A bank of callers. One last headline before we take those calls. The Pope thinks climate change is a major threat. So do American Catholics. I would just advise people to go search or find the articles about what the Pope said and his initiative and teaming up with the president on climate change. I think it's very important because
that's exactly
being the vicar of Christ, the representative of Christ on earth, should know that this earth is temporary. This earth will be destroyed. When the Lord returns, he will have a new heaven and a new earth. The climate change aspect of showing the Pope's inability or lack of faith or belief in the Lord and showing a belief in man, the world, and science. And that's the bottom line with this, to me.
Yeah, I can see where you're headed with that at the largest, at the macro level with that.
I mean, he should say climate change is a problem. We need to pray. Not we need to get the EPA to inflict regulations to raise taxes on carbon dioxide. You know what I mean?
No. I mean, look, if there was a genuine problem with respect to climate change, first of all, you investigate what the problem is. You find out who's doing it or what the cause is, if in fact it's a legitimate problem, and only then can you come to a certain conclusion. You don't rely on other people's facts. But after all of that, beyond all of that, under what authority is the Vatican using to interject themselves into things like climate change, as well as Cuba, to the extent that this Pope is doing? And what is the agenda not only of the Vatican, but what's the agenda of Obama and the people surrounding him? Is it for the legitimacy of their moves with respect to Cuba, immigration, and the climate?
The central bankers have partners, and the partners have monetary interests.
I thought that was a kind of a given. But, let's
all right,
take some calls.
Well, no more delay on the phones. We're going to start with area code 708 tonight. 708, you're up first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Back in the 70s, wasn't carbon dioxide the stuff that the plants and trees ate that
yes.
kept the cycle of life going around? And then
I don't
within
think that's
a couple of decades, and now within a couple of decades, the same scientists are saying that it's killing the planet.
Yeah, you make a great point.
Okay, it's carbon dioxide, correct? Is what they're saying. It's not carbon monoxide, right? Not the carbon dioxide.
And
okay.
carbon monoxide is part of the rejuvenation of life. You know, carbon dioxide is taken in by the vegetation, and oxygen is then in its place through photosynthesis released.
Right. All right. So now it's become this poisonous gas in their eyes that is destroying the planet, and the reason for culling the herd, so to speak, is to save the plants, which without what we're exhaling won't do very well either, correct?
Correct. I mean, yes. And I understand this can be a very circular argument, but what piques our interest is the involvement of the Vatican and the involvement of, of course, the methods of subjugation being used through or by reason of climate change. And
for good cause, because the Pope not only sees himself, but those that follow him see him as basically Jesus Christ here on earth. So if they're picturing him as being the end-all, see-all, know-all, holy see, I think they call him, then, of course, his word is like fire. His word is then just as good as God himself in their own delusional circles.
Well, yes,
and I think,
exactly.
And I think this probably comes from, years of, I think way back when, that whole hierarchy really did have something to say with as far as like the moralities and the ways laws were written, and but it was a different world. So, if we want to eliminate more carbon dioxide, we could get rid of all of the soda, or some people call it pop. That is just nothing but carbon dioxide. We can get rid of all carbonated beverages. All carbonated beverages, if we got rid of all of them, maybe we could see what an impact we would have.
or have somehow redirect the odious nature of the cows that are walking the pastures. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument. It really is. It's a ridiculous argument, but it's an excuse for subjugation of the population. It really, that's the bottom line.
And so much of the population has been so dumbed down and just completely oblivious to it anyway. It's difficult for them to see the truth, because it doesn't really matter what you say. Like my dad used to say, it's like talking to a brick wall. So
yeah. I mean, it really is.
I think we should go back to what Ronald Reagan said. You know what? Let's get this wall down. And keep up your efforts, guys.
Well, thank you. God bless. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
All right. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks. Yes,
God
you
bless
too.
you.
And folks, we hope to see. I just want to mention this again. We hope to see many of you at the Orlando conference, Prophecy in the News Conference, Orlando, this March, first weekend in March. Just let you know, we just kind of inked the deal today. And
excited.
Excited about this. Meeting people and meeting the listeners and talking to them and we'll even buy a cup of coffee. So
being given the honor to present with all these fine gentlemen and a great gathering of people, and not to mention in Florida, the land of palm trees, anytime in a subtropical area, never want to leave. Being from here,
well, I'll tell you one thing. It's going to be great to see to see you folks. Those of you planning to attend that conference, it's going to be great to meet each and every one of you. We had a great time meeting you last year, and it'll be great this year. And of course, the conferences in Columbus and Montana. My goodness, just love meeting people. And thank you all. But anyway, all right, let's move on.
All right. We're going to go to area code 303. 303, thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. 303? All right, we'll come back to you. We're going to go to 626 next. 626, live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, gentlemen. Blessings to you both. How are things up on the front line this evening?
We're fighting.
Snowy.
Cold. Yeah, we've got frostbitten noses, but that's all right. It's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. Okay, so Hagmann and Hagmann family listeners, ladies, we need to start knitting. They've got frostbitten noses, so tis the season. Let's get those needles clicking and clacking here.
I think we can tough it out. That's fine. It is snowy, but I'm sure you didn't call for a weather forecast. But anyway.
Well, no, I didn't. But, gentlemen, what I'm going to try to do quickly here this evening is, with regards to Michael, who by the way, was really putting out some interesting data and drawing together some of these different frequencies. And what I'm going to try to do right now is vector a number of frequencies from this evening. And what I mean by that is I'm going to address with one comment the fluctuations in the Dow, the missing plane issue, the false flag World War III speculation, as well as the pedophilia issue.
Wait a second. In one comment you're going to do this?
Well, it's going to take a couple sentences.
Okay, well, that's all right.
Okay, I'm going to go back to my Pentecostal roots here. I'm going to use an old Pentecostal anecdote to begin. You will often hear, folks, they see the way of following Christ, but it looks scary and they're buried in sin, and it's scary when you're a non-believer. But it's attractive at the same time. Now, you know the world. You know the nature of sin very well because we were all born into it. So what do these folks do? And I've done it too. You sit that fence. You sit the fence. And I want to start tonight by saying, folks, the devil owns the fence. The devil owns the fence. And that being understood,
that's a good point.
The devil owns the fence. And I would suggest that we all maybe take a moment this week to read in Scripture and remind ourselves and pray on this, that Satan, one of his characteristics is he is the counterfeiter. He is the master counterfeiter.
Great imitator.
Absolutely. When you look at the news today, regardless of your news source, everything from MSNBC to Drudge Report, regardless of your partisan politics, up is down, down is up. It's almost impossible to know if you're even getting real data or not. So what I wanted to say about all of this is that it's like when you're trying to untangle a big ball of yarn. You've got to find one end. If you work from the middle, you're just going to continue to tangle it over and over. And that end, for everybody listening here, is discernment, and that can only be had by a relationship with Christ. Without discernment, no matter how good your data is, whether it's from a spiritual source or from a secular source, you'll never be able to understand the cause and effect of what's going on in the day-to-day news, all the topics that we've been discussing tonight, without that discernment. I would submit to the Hagmann and Hagmann family, gentlemen, that discernment is sort of like finding that end of the yarn so you can begin untangling the ball. And the only way to get that discernment is to remember that the devil owns that fence. So you got to jump off of it on the Jesus side.
And you know, I had I want to say a boss, but he was more than that. He said, you know, if you're straddling the fence and you fall off that fence, you're going to fall on the side to which you were leaning toward the most. In other words, where you were biased, or you know, so if you fall into onto the Satanistic counterfeit side, well, you were more on that side to begin with. You shouldn't even been on the fence. But having said that, that's where you were leaning toward anyway. So, yes, you're right. And I think you're right. We can't have fence sitters. We've got to choose a side. And when I say that, choosing a side, it means choosing good versus evil, Christ versus a counterfeit.
Amen. You know, Doug, one of the things that brought me much closer to the Lord was this program, because unlike an emotional reaction to sin, which is what generally drove me to my knees in times past, the data that we go over on this show and on True News as well, it appealed to my intellect, and it made me realize, and I'll make this my final comment, it made me realize, folks, that what's coming is coming, and we're going to be here for it. Okay, like you always say, Doug, we were born for this time. We've got to play our positions like Brother Perez, Augusto Perez says, to our assigned seats. And that being said, it doesn't matter how good the data that you receive is. Without discernment, you will constantly go down very interesting alleys, back alleys, twists and turns, but you will come up against a brick wall every single time. And, folks, we don't have time for that anymore. It's time to get the discernment that can only come with Jesus. So God bless you both.
And God bless you, bro. Thank you so much, Sean. And folks, I got to tell you, Steve Quayle had talked to me about that too. We had long conversations about discernment. You've got to have discernment, and discernment through the Word of God, and otherwise, boy, can you fall on your face. And when you hit that pavement, man, it's bad. So
discernment is something that is a foundational tool that needs to be used when you are born again into Christ and you start to seek his understanding and wisdom and ask him into your life and ask him to show you things. Discernment is the most necessary tools. Without discernment, we would not be able to judge good from evil. There are many people that masquerade as good only to have the most nefarious intentions. And without discernment, how could you tell?
Very, very well said. Without discernment, how can you tell? Well, by the fruits, obviously, but as Steve likes to say, we look at the root, not the fruit of evil. So that's good. All right.
Area code 774. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. 774?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, that's you.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I love you guys. I've been listening to you for like 2 years, and during the day I listen to Paul Bagley, and I just want to say thank you so much for all your information and all the work that you do. It's really appreciated.
Well, we appreciate being appreciated, but we appreciate you more by listening and by spreading the word. Being a foot soldier out there in the midst of all that we're going through, man, that's a tough job, and we so appreciate you for listening.
Yeah, you guys do more for us than we could do for ourselves, and thank you.
Yeah, God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Joe, and that's the thing too. Whether and talking with Ted Broer off air and others in private, it's really nothing that we do. We play our part to an extent, but it's really what our listeners do. And I was just so proud when we had so many compliments by Blog Talk Radio, for example, by saying, you've got the most respectful audience, passionate over what they believe, and very protective over you. And I thought, man, you can't. Wow.
Guest after guest comment to us off air and say, You know, I've done Coast to Coast, and I've done this show and that show. But when I came on your show, the response I got was tenfold to any other show that I've done. And the guests are pleasantly surprised, and they share that with us, how impressed they were with the level of intellect and much more, you know, the politeness, I mean, just the overall people, the character of the people that make up the listeners.
And that's why when we screw up or we use, you know, sometimes things go awry, don't they? Yeah, I guess they do sometimes.
Never.
Sometimes things happen, right? And sometimes you got to take a left turn or a right turn to, or do something that, you know, not expected. But you know, every time something like that happens, believe me, we're harder on ourselves than you could ever be through your emails, and we do, you know, get to our knees and say, what did we do? Where did we go wrong, and why? You know, could it have been prevented? It doesn't matter what the situation. So the bottom line, the reason I brought that up is we never want to squander your trust in us, because that can never. It takes years, really, to build up trust and confidence, but really minutes to, or seconds even, to tear it down, and you'll never get it back. So
that's right. Area code 864. You're up next and live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. 864. All right, we'll come back to you if there's time. We will go to area code. Let's see. We'll go to area code 256. 256. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Oh, good evening, Joe and Doug. It was a great show tonight. I appreciate all your efforts. I got a few things to say about Mr. Michael Rosecliff there. I appreciate everything he was saying. I've heard him on many other shows. He was particularly out of sorts tonight, and he impressed me as a young man possessing much pertinent information that was distressing to him, and I say it was quite overwhelming for him, and you know, God bless him. Let's say a prayer for him. You know, he's trying to do his best service as best he can.
Sure,
absolutely.
You know?
And isn't that why we need God in the mix too? Because man, you know, without God in the mix, you can go terribly awry. So yes, sir. Go ahead.
When I was 33, I was probably a little bit crass myself, you know. But he made some really great points, and you guys, you know, had some things you spoke about. I'd like to counterpoint, if I might, real quickly here.
Sure.
You know, the term globalist was used, and order out of chaos. And, you know, these are really important terms because they're used so many times in so many different ways, and, you know, they can get, you know, muddled. But, you know, order out of chaos seems to be self-evident, but, you know, here's the question, you know, who defines order? You know, you have to go to who is defining the order. You know, Adolf Hitler was trying to define order out of chaos. You know?
Well, it's a point.
So,
but doesn't God define it ultimately? Because
and that's outstanding. Yes, exactly. You know, we as you said earlier, we need to be on the side of the fence, if you will, that's on God's side, and the order. Pick a side. You know, what side are you going to be on? You know, I want the order that God brings, not B-Stack and the rest of this stuff. You know, so that kind of leads into my next comment. Was the globalists? You know, that term was bandied around a bit, and you know, globalist equals dominion. You know, and you know, who was given dominion over this world? You know, the previous caller spoke eloquently to it. I really appreciated his comments. You know, who's given dominion over this world? You know, that's the globalist power. and we had to choose because here's my accusation, my learned accusation to the rest of my fellow human beings is that we've been operating, we're complicit through codependence, giving them dominion, and we have, and so then that leads into my next statement is that I propose that we need to spend some time in our own thoughts, in our minds, in our Bibles, and in those quiet places in our minds, and reconcile the differences between the lives that we've been leading and the values that we espouse. And when you find conflict there, understand that that's an abrasion point, that's a rubbing point. You need to reconcile that, and then you need to act on that, and then they will incrementally lose their dominion.
But we can't allow. Okay, when you say reconcile, that doesn't mean tolerate, right? In other words,
absolutely not. It means
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No. You finish. I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh no. Yeah, reconcile means that's a when you find things in your life that you need to reconcile, you go, well, this is problematic. So I need to reconcile this problem. And if those problems are my own actions and my complicitness in a globalist system, then you have to, be grown up, as V says, pull up your big boy pants and make decisions that say, I need to, behave or have different behaviors and make different choices, so I know it's all daunting, but, we can absolutely, stand for what's right here. Our forefathers did, and you guys do it all the time.
Well, at least we attempt to, yes. But a lot of people... it's both a spiritual as well as a physical battle. I mean, people have a tendency to dismiss one or the other, and when that happens, to me, that causes the problem. So, for example, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
Listen, you guys. I called in once before during your 9/11 show. I was a pilot for a lot of years, airlines, and so I also agree with Michael Rosecliff on his assessment of MH17 and MH70. It was a setup from the beginning, and
it was a
everything
setup.
he was talking.
Now, wait a second. That's right. You're a pilot. What I have trouble with is and I wanted to get more into it with them, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have an extra plane and extra passengers, right? But
that was beautiful. I really liked how you dogged that. That was good. You kept track of the marbles. As far as MH17 and 370, you didn't really have an extra airplane. With his supposition that MH370 was in fact turned into MH17, they're one and the same plane. So,
but you
plane
got much more people.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well. Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry about the delay, but you got a whole bunch more people.
The thing of it is that we don't know all the logistics, and this is what's frustrating for me. I think a lot of people, as we're not getting complete narratives, is that we don't know the gate. We don't have video of the gate when they closed in Schiphol in Amsterdam when MH17 pushed back. We don't have the manifest. We never see the survivors talk about their lost loved ones. Well, why not? It seems like Sandy Hook. It's all these dead people and what? No funerals? What?
Absolutely. We got 10 seconds left.
You're a detective. I know you're a detective. It doesn't add up. So when it doesn't add up, it means that, there's more detective work that needs to be done. You guys are great.
Absolutely right. Okay. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
That'll do it for us tonight, folks.
Bye-bye.
Tomorrow, Stan Dale will be live with us. Wednesday, Steve Quayle and Tom Horn. Thursday, Dan Duvall. Thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. We could not do this without you. You guys are fantastic. All the support via prayers or your emails or spreading the word about the show. We can't thank you enough in words or in any other means. God bless you all. Have a great night. We will see you tomorrow.